Hello, this is the third part of An Untraveled Road by Neon Zangetsu. Link will be in the description. All author's notes have been removed between chapters. Also, any explicit NSFW scene will be removed. This part will cover Chapter 9 to 15. Chapter 10, This Matters, Family Matters. Touch my family and you die. Tilda? The enemy of my enemy, Watts, didn't consider himself a religious man. But here, now? He couldn't help but wonder if the gods were smiling upon him. Someone certainly was. Hours of contemplation, days spent in isolation, weeks wasted on work, months mangled by lack of inspiration. And then, quite suddenly, an epiphany. A stroke of luck. It drove him forward now, as it had for the last few days. Everything was coming together. Really, it was almost too good to be true. The cynic in him knew a crash was coming, but for the life of him, he couldn't bring himself to care. One shouldn't look a gift horse in the mouth after all. Classical music spilled from a nearby radio as he hunched over his computer, humming softly to himself. An empty kettle of coffee lay forgotten beside his desk, drained to the last drop. He'd drank it all. His blood was pure caffeine by this point. Of course, he knew he must look a right state. His hair unkempt, moustache a droopy mess, clothes dirty and rumbled. He'd not slept in, well, he honestly didn't remember. It had been quite some time since his last power nap. He remembered eating something a few hours ago, so he didn't lack for nutrition. Sleep? Who needed sleep? Irrelevant. He could pass out once this was done. He was so close. He knew it. He could feel it. Just a bit more, and I'll rest. His hand flew across the keyboard at a feverish pace, hastily inputting the last line of code. It flashed green, and so too did triumph dance over his face. Aha! There! Thanks to his semblance, Arthur understood technology more than most. It spoke to him in ways few could understand. Anyone else would have been unable to decipher such data as quickly as he. And he saw through it all, mind a-whirl with possibilities. What happened when you blended aura with chakra? What happened when such a being gained life? Sentience? A soul? Long had he pondered that question. Chakra wasn't like aura. They were two separate sources of power. Melding the two was nigh on impossible. Just as you couldn't have a semblance without a soul, aura couldn't sustain itself with the sense of self. Ah, but chakra was so very different. At least Naruto's was. It wanted to burn, to thrive, grow. Once given life, it would inevitably expire if left alone long enough. But he'd since found ways to remedy that. It wanted purpose, life. Watts was all too happy to grant it such. Chakra was merely the means to kickstart his latest experiment, and he was the only one that knew of it. The advancements he could make, the strides. Why, it was enough to make a man's head spin. Remnant would sing his praises for centuries after this. He would revolutionize Atlas. He would change the world. He would be legendary. Running his experiments by Naruto was a small price to pay for greatness, if only because he knew his ally would see the greatness in this. They were two men cut from the same cloth. Naruto's talents lay on the field of battle, and with his silver tongue. He could conquer even the coldest of hearts and turn them to his way of thinking. He was a protector, yes, but not a builder. He could not create. He wanted to help people but possessed little in the way of ambition. Quite all right, that. Watts had enough ambition for the both of them. A faint chime caught Arthur's attention. He spun away from his computer and pressed the enter key as he did. From there, he kicked off his desk with his good leg, sending himself and said chair-wheeling across the room with a delighted cackle. His feet kicked down suddenly, dragging his chair to a halt. Aura flared. He ignored it, focused solely on the object before him. Nay, not an object. The pod before him held his life's ambition, his magnum opus, his masterwork. Contained within, suspended by an array of wires and pale blue fluid, she awaited him. Pietro could have his plots and that precious penny project. This would blow his rival right out of the water. Can you hear me, my dear? Arthur leaned back, eyes alert as the being before slumbered began to move in her pod. Do you dream, I wonder? A soft, tinny voice came through the speaker. A beat of stilted silence followed, and Watts held his breath. Hoped, dreamed. The young girl before him moved. Rather, her hand did. Pale, slate-grey arms and began to twitch, despite lacking the musculature needed to do so. She wasn't human after all, no matter how much she might resemble one. She blinked. Once, twice, thrice. Golden red eyes fluttered open and shut, then open again. She tilted her head, long dark hair moving in the liquid, falling across one side of her face as she regarded him, first with confusion, followed by recognition. His heart skipped a beat. Her hand moved, pressed against the glass. She wasn't complete. Not yet, but she would be. He'd done it. By Jove, he'd done it. Artificial life. True sentience, powered by chakra and aura alike. Self-sustaining with her own thoughts and will. He would be legendary for this. Of course, so would his ally. None of this would be possible without him. He'd have to be told, of course. But not yet. There were still kinks to iron out. She was alive. She was awake. That was all that mattered. She recognized him. She remembered his voice. This was the first time she'd seen him with her eyes. A small, tremulous smile bloomed across her pale features as she gazed up at him. Father! Without a smile, the doctor leaned forward and laid his right hand upon the glass. Welcome to the world, my dear Alma. 0.0. Must I wear this? Naruto did not smirk at Cinder, nor did he snicker at her as she pouted. He certainly didn't deride his daughter's discomfort as she seethed and squirmed in her new dress. Nope, not a bit. He kept his emotions bottled up, his whiskered visage blank as an empty canvas. Anyone who said or suggested otherwise was a liar and a traitor. I know you don't like it. He tousled her hair gently, careful not to muss it up too badly. Willow would kill him if he did. But just bear with it for now. It's only for tonight. In years to come, Cinder Schnee would be a beauty beyond beauties, but for now, she was just a child. And right now, this child looked fit to spit fire. Naruto flicked a quick glance to her palms just to make sure they weren't burning red. Given the nature of her semblance, that was a very real possibility. Cinder could be all elbows and knees when she wanted to be, and she certainly wasn't afraid to make her opinion known these days. And yet, he couldn't help but find her defiance oddly adorable, like a baby dragon. Or a baby shark. Did they still have that grim onesie Willow bought her? Don't let her catch you saying that. Kurama's raucous laughter echoed in the back of his head. She'll bite you. Cinder? Nah. Naruto did his best not to laugh as he looked down at her again. She'd asked for a red dress on a whim, and Nicholas obliged her request. Unfortunately, she underestimated the nature of this little gathering, much less what would be required of her. Formal was formal after all, and tonight would be no exception. And if everyone had to suffer through this, so did she. By the log did she look like it. Instead of a simple scarlet garment, as Cinder expected, the servants had crammed the poor girl into a long-sleeved red gown, rimmed with white fur and matching stockings. A large silvery snowflake, bearing many spokes, the Schnee crest, lay stitched into the back, a happy reminder of her new life. It contrasted nicely with her immaculately curled hair for the occasion, left to fall down her back in ebony ringlets. Were that all, she might not have been so surly with everyone. But they'd made her wear heels. Actual heels! Bright red things that looked far too ungainly for a child to wear. No wonder she wanted to stab something. At least he only had to wear a white suit and a red tie tonight. Cinder looked like she was 3 seconds from tearing her dress apart and storming upstairs. You don't have anything to worry about. He patted her head before she could, smiling in the face of her scowl. Nothing bad's gonna happen. And if it does? A golden eye peeked up at him through the dark curtain of her hair. Then I'll smack 'em in the mouth. He slapped a fist into an open palm. That thawed her worry, but only a little. A sudden pang of fatherly worry hit him in the chest and he acted on it, kneeling down to draw Cinder in for a quick hug. The former urchin hissed in surprise at the sudden physical contact, but didn't fight him as she had in the past. She knew better by now. It still took her nearly 10 seconds to fully relax in his grasp. Then she clamped down hard. Her chin came down over his shoulder and she held on, for dear life. His hand came down on her back, stroking her shoulders. He still wasn't used to the idea of being a father, but damn it, he was determined to try. Tell you what, when in doubt, fall back on bribery. I think I know a neat little fire jutsu that you might be able to use with your semblance. I'll teach it to you tomorrow morning, then we'll practice wall walking. I know you can do that with your semblance. It worked like a charm too. Cinder's eyes lit up, unable to conceal the spark of excitement there. Promise? Promise. He kissed her forehead. Now go find your mother. We're gonna be late. Bring your swords too. Can't hurt to be prepared. Cinder didn't run. She scampered up the stairs in a swirl of red silk. Naruto watched her go, shook his head with a bittersweet smile, and moved on to the next item on the agenda. One down. Cinder would fetch Willow and he'd already donned his suit. Now he just had to corral the rest of his friends and family before someone started swinging. What was taking that damn limousine so long? Told you. Summer's silken laughter echoed through the foyer. For all your complaints, you're a good father. He stole a glance over his shoulder. With one of them, at least. That's it. I've had enough. I'm not going. Not. The wayward warrior pinched the brow of his nose. And there was the second hurdle. He turned to find poor Sienna Khan sullenly sulking near the door, a look of absolute hate etched into her tan visage. For a moment, he almost failed to recognize her. Poor kiddo. She looked like she'd been put through the ringer. Hair had immaculately coiffed, makeup applied, eyebrows plucked. She looked fit to hiss. Clad in a heavy, dark burgundy gown that left her dark shoulders bare with stockings and sleeves to match, the young girl looked pretty as a painting. Her outfit suited her quite nicely. Really made her stripes stand out, you know? Her ears told another story. So did the heels, which she'd all but kicked off. Oh my, Summer hid a smile behind her hand. She's adorable. When did you pick her up? Naruto winced and tried to stay diplomatic. She's a ward of the White Fang. Silver eyes gleamed with mirth. Another daughter, you mean? Naruto pinched the brow of his nose. Summer, no. Summer, yes! Naruto knew better than to dignify that argued with a response. Summer had claimed Cinder as her niece ages ago. No doubt she'd attempt to do the same with Sienna. She was welcome to try. Unlike Cinder, she had claws and she wasn't afraid to use them. If pushed tonight, she'd scratch someone senseless. She caught him and Summer looking and hissed at them, making her displeasure further known to the pair. No amount of bribery or cajoling would bring this kitty down off that tree. Sure enough, Sienna stamped a foot beneath his bemused gaze. I'm not wearing this. Objection noted. Naruto tried not to laugh, grateful for the distraction. We'll go out for seafood later tonight. My treat. Blah! The girl made a face, looking like she'd just sucked on a lemon. Who do you think I am, Kaylee? I won't be tempted by some fish dish. Is that so? Summer crouched down and cut her off, bringing herself eye to eye with the irritated faunus. How about steak, then? You like meaty dishes, don't you? Taken aback by this sudden strangeness, Sienna could only sputter. Sure, I get it. The huntress smiled, patted her head. I hate veggies myself, but doesn't beef sound good? How about venison? Or maybe turkey? Sienna stiffened, all the rage draining out of her like a broken sieve. Her ears perked up and her eyes went slitted. A thin line of drool ran from the corner of her mouth to trickle down the length of her chin. She noticed it at once and furiously scrubbed it away with the back of her first, but it was too late. The damage was done. Naruto took note of it. So did Kurama. What did we just witness? He whispered. Summer actually tamed her with food. She'd make a good mother someday, that one. Never thought I'd see it happen. Sienna wilted. Do you mean it? Huh, maybe bribery worked after all. Course I do. Summer touzled her hair as she stood, favouring her with a paternal smile. A huntress never breaks her word. Anything for my little niece. Wait a second. Sienna blinked rapidly, eyes gone wide. I'm not your niece. We aren't even related. Came the grin. If you're one of his kids, you might as well be. Sienna turned rose red and fled after Cinder. By contrast, Summer looked every bit at her ease. Ironic, given she'd been forced to wear a gown tonight as well. Clad in an off-shoulder slip dress with matching accessories, one never would have known she was a huntress. He didn't rightly know what the fabric was, but it seemed to shimmer silver in the evening lights. It matched her eyes well, if one ignored the scythe bound at her back by a matching cord. Even collapsed into its concealed form, thorn was a wicked-looking thing. You didn't separate a beacon huntress from their weapon. It just wasn't done. What was the saying? Every rose had its thorn. Summer must have garnered that idea in naming her weapon. Not like anyone else had yet. Summer caught him looking, of course. She was just that sharp. Careful now. She planted one hand on her hip to regard him keenly. Keep staring at my weapon like that and a girl might get ideas. Brat! You just want me for my arm. He scoffed and threw a lazy jab at her head. She ducked him with a giggle and slipped out of reach with surprising dexterity for a woman. Summer Rose might be a bit of a ditz and a spaz when it came to weapons, and frankly far too interested in his right arm. But beneath that veneer, Summer was a good person. She was a good friend, loyal to Willow and honest to a fault. That alone earned his trust. Honestly, he didn't think she had a negative bone in her body. If something ever happened to him, he knew she would be the first to come to his aid. She'd drag the rest of Team STRQ along for the ride, too. Willow was lucky to have an ally like her. Hey! None of that fatalistic crap. You're not going anywhere. I know, he shot back. Doesn't hurt to be prepared, though. And I'm worried about that assassin. Marcus Black had been a constant shadow in his thoughts as of late, a veritable tumour on his mind. If that cheeky Proic thought he could strike at Freya while they were away, he was sorely mistaken. He'd find himself a head shorter besides. Not only had they doubled the shadow clones both within and without her room, but Nicholas himself, a man not even Ozpin cared to cross blades with, would be but a single call away. That didn't bother Naruto. Only a lunatic would stick their neck out like this. Anyone who did was asking for it to be hacked off. What truly troubled him was Freya's inability to wake. By all accounts, the Winter Maiden, that term still burned in his mind for reasons he couldn't understand, was fit as a fiddle. She simply wouldn't open her eyes. Marcus must have done something to her. So long as she lived, he would be a threat to her. Just thinking of it had him grinding his hands into angry fists. He'd been caught off guard. That wouldn't happen again. He refused to allow it. Kurama felt it. Don't go blaming yourself. You did your best. Cannon arm! I should have caught the bastard. And you will next time. Would he? Teleportation was a pain to deal with. Still, it was nothing he'd not seen before. Marcus would know better than to cross him now. He'd nearly killed him. The assassin would keep his distance. No matter what his allies might say, the onus of guilt lay with him. He'd grown lax since he'd come to Remnant. Not weak, but sloppy. Peace was going to ruin him at this rate. He needed to up his training. Willow's too. And Cinder. Couldn't forget Sienna either. They needed to be ready for the coming storm. Everything was about to change. He felt it in his bones. We need to be ready, Kurama. And we will be. Naruto! Someone tugged at the sleeve of his suit, yanking him back to reality. Remnant to Naruto. Who are you talking to? Shaking his head, he banished such thoughts and looked back to Summer, startled to find those silver eyes piercing him. She had a death grip on his arm, fingers fisting against the white fabric. He scowled. Not at her, of course. Summer was too pure to ever stay angry with. How much of that did you hear? Not much. She gave him a self-same smile. Just the last bit. What's a Kurama? No. The fox stiffened when he honestly considered answer. Don't you dare. That one's terrifying enough. She doesn't need to know about me. As entertaining as it might be to reveal Kurama and see him squirm, Naruto decided to abstain for now. It was too risky to tell Summer anything yet. He trusted her well enough, but he wasn't about to spill shinobi secrets any more than he already had. Frazzled, he sought to distract her instead. You know, you don't look half bad in that dress. Nice try. Flattery will get you everywhere. She took his compliment in stride with a lazy wave of her hand. Had to take dancing lessons when I was little, so I'm used to wearing dresses. Nothing major. Not a fan of heels, though. Silver eyes glowered at her glass-like slippers. They still suck. She scuffed one against the polished floor. Give me combat boots any day. With that, Naruto finally felt the last of the tension drain away from him. Careful, he chided. Your accent's showing through. She laughed and swatted him on his mechanical arm as she walked past. He didn't feel a thing. All right, now where the devil is A blood-red blade slammed into the wall mere inches from his ear. Aha! He frowned at his reflection in the dust, watching it shatter. There she is. Which brought them to their third and final hurdle of the evening. Quite possibly the most lethal of all. Raven was by far the surliest of everyone assembled tonight. Her thunderous scowl promised pain if his lips so much as twitched in her direction. He wasn't sure who managed to get her into that black halter dress, but they'd probably paid in blood. She still had Omen's hilt to hand, its long sheath secured to her waist by a corded red belt, ready to draw on him in an instant. As he looked on, she slammed said hilt into its sheath and drew another dustblade, ready to swing at his face. He really shouldn't say anything. And yet, oh, look at the whittle birdie. His thoughts betrayed him regardless. All prim and proper. Aren't you just adorable, Tilda? She brandished Omen menacingly. I will cut out your tongue. Haven't before, and you can't now. His eyes swept down, noting her heels and oddly unsteady posture. Can you even move in those? Red eyes flashed like lightning. Says the man wrapped up in a stupid schnee suit. Naruto looked down, shrugged. At least I make it work. Unlike you. Is that so? Raven's pale face turned an alarming shade of red. Choose your next words carefully. They might be your last. A muscle jumped in his jaw. Ha! That's big talk from a bipedal bird. Her forehead smashed up against his. You take that back. Fine, he amended. Bipedal bitch. Happy now. Red eyes met blue. Sparks flew. Naruto didn't dislike Raven these days per se, not as much as he had in the past. The initial ire he'd felt for her was long thawed. Raven wasn't Sasuke. There were similarities there to be sure, but at the end of the day she was rougher than his old friend ever was. And unlike the surly Uchiha, the Branwen woman knew how to get a rise out of him. He could do the same to her, of course. Rivalry went both ways. Neither of them liked to back down from a challenge. Raven didn't want to show any form of weakness, and he knew she'd needle him for any such display on his part. Children, both of you! I swear you both lose brain cells when you start arguing. Clonk! Someone came up behind them, grabbed them both by the back of their heads, and smashed their faces together. Foreheads collided. Aura flashed. Chakra flared. Both stumbled back, seeing stars. Mission accomplished. Any lingering anger they might have felt toward one another pivoted to Summer instead. You do realize we'll get you back for that. Silver eyes met Scarlet and Sapphire, dancing with impish mirth. If it keeps the two of you from killing each other, that's fine by me, Tilda. Raven huffed and tore her gaze away. Not my fault. Should have dragged Crow and Ty along for this. Summer muffled a giggle against her palm. I'm sure they'd look good dressed up. It's not too late, you know. Maybe, yes it is. No more delays. Naruto slapped a hand to his forehead. For the love of... We're going to be late at this rate. Where in blazes is Willow? Sorry to keep you. A familiar voice called from the staircase. How do I look? He turned toward the stairs. His throat went dry. Willow is lovely. It was the first and only word that came to mind. He couldn't even begin to describe the flowing azure gown she wore, but he gave it a valiant effort regardless. Blue was most certainly her colour. There could be no doubt. She'd let her hair down properly this time, abandoning her traditional braid altogether in favour of a more natural look. It reminded him of freshly fallen snow. And that dress, by the sage. It clung to her curves without saying too much, hinting at what lay beneath the shining silk yet never quite telling. A string of white pearls completed the ensemble, matching the shawl she wore. She descended the steps with pose and purpose, never once faltering despite the eyes upon her. Cinder trailed half a step behind on her right, with Sienna at the laugh. The former caught him looking and rolled her eyes. For once, Naruto ignored her. Beautiful. Willow gasped, and he realized too late that he'd spoken aloud. Oh. Her mouth formed a perfect oval of surprise before looked away and she managed to master herself. Well, you don't look half bad yourself. Naruto supposed he didn't. White certainly wasn't his favourite colour by any means, but it matched Willow's outfit quite well. Coupled with the still fading colour of his hair, hardly blonde at all now, and it made clear the Schnee was staking a claim. Fine by him, really. Willow could claim him all she wanted, and now he felt dirty just for thinking that. All right, everyone out? He took her by the arm as Cinder did the same, leaving the rest to follow in their wake. We're late as it is. Fashionably late? Willow interjected with a small, satisfied smile. Whatever. He flung up his arms. Outside. Now. Their limousine awaited them just beyond the steps without, engine running. Naruto felt his lips purse into a grimace at the sight of it. It was white. Of course it was white. Frankly, it would be a miracle if it wasn't. Ah. There you are, my lady. A man in a black suit stood near the driver's door, utterly unfazed by the bitter evening cold. Bemused red eyes set in a pale yet handsome face gazed back at them, framed by dark hair and a smile like sin. If didn't know better, he could have thought the man Raven's brother. But no, he wasn't Crow. Some distant relation, perhaps? Bloodlines were strange like that. Whoever he was, he must have been one hell of a butler to wait in the cold like this. Raven scowled at him for some reason he didn't understand. Willow afforded their guide a rare smile as they approached. Thank you for waiting, Sebastian. I'm sorry if we kept you over long. Not at all, my lady. The driver sketched a brief genteel bow. Shall I take you to the venue? That would be best, yes? She slid in first and Cinder scooted in after her, claiming the middle seat by right of conquest. Naruto climbed in after her, leaving Summer and the rest to bring up the rear. The interior proved larger than he'd expected, easily big enough to comfortably seat the 6 of them across from one another, 3 abreast. Better yet, there was a divider between them and the driver, allowing their group to speak privately. Somehow, he doubted it was for their sanity as much as his. Of course, some people noticed other things first. Shit, they've got wine? Don't mind if I do. Raven, no! Summer slapped her hand down. No drinking. Why not? It's a long drive, damn it. Naruto settled in to wait. It would be a night to remember. After all, what could possibly go wrong? 0.0, 0.0. Cinder couldn't breathe. She saw her doom approaching, and her throat closed at the sight of it in the limousine window. Every second brought it closer still. Each instant threatened to undo her even further. Her heart pounded like a skittish colt in her chest, threatening to burst at any moment. Fight and flight warred within her, threatening to tear her little body apart. And one had but to look outside to know why. The glass unicorn. She saw it in the distance, and her world ground to a halt. No, this wasn't happening. She hadn't been told. A small, shuddering breath pushed itself through her clenched teeth, and she shrank back, even as the hotel grew steadily larger before her. No! No, no, no! She couldn't do this! All her fears came rushing back, and she nearly bolted. Would have too, was she not sandwiched between Naruto and Willow. A hand settled on her shoulder. Cinder. What's wrong? She turned wild eyes upon Naruto, fighting panic and suspicion in equal measure. Baffled blue eyes gazed down at her. He wasn't taking her back. No, his confusion was real. They hadn't told her where they were going, but then again, she hadn't told them either. They knew she ran away from somewhere, but not where. Not when. Not why. Of course they didn't know. And in her haste to leave her past behind, now it came back to haunt her. Why are going here? The words escaped her in a whisper. This is the venue we booked, Willow explained patiently. Why? Her brow furrowed with concern. Is something wrong? All eyes on her. Cinder knew she had to speak, now lest she lose the moment forever. She choked on the word, felt it lodge in her throat. Bitter tears welled up in golden eyes. Looking away, she pointed a pale finger at the building looming in the distance. I lived here, worked here, before I ran away. They beat me. Her words turned clipped, unable to speak of the true horror that she had endured within those walls. Can we not go in? Papa was the best, because he heard the pain in her voice and reacted, pulling her into his arms. Willow was just as quick. Sebastian! Stop the car! Credit where it was due, the butler obeyed and the limo slammed to a halt. Summer and Raven shot her a baffled look, but the huntresses held her tongues. Even Sienna fell silent. Naruto nudged her gently and she leaned into him. Maybe you should tell us the full story, unless you'd rather go home, and have him look the fool. If they backed out now, the media would tear him and Willow apart. They'd not care, of course, but the damage would be done. Papa would be seen as weak, cowardly. The blame would lay at her feet for it. No, she needed to face this. I don't have to run now. She was brave. She was stronger. She could do this. She had to do this. If she kept running from her problems, she'd never be able to stand on her own feet. And so she told them. Slowly at first, haltingly, but she told them all the same. She told them everything, not sparing any detail. Who she was. Where'd she'd come from, right up to her daring escape. The necklace had hurt so very badly when she ran, but she'd managed to tear it off and keep running. She ran and she ran and she ran until she couldn't run anymore. By some miracle, she'd managed to stow away on a ship and make it down to Mantle. She'd been hiding there ever since. Until everything changed. Shit. Sienna found her voice first. If that's true, Cinder tentatively showed her the scars on her hands, the burns she'd sustained when she'd ripped the electric necklace off so long ago. Her rival balked. Damn it! They treated you even worse than a faunus. The tigress whispered. At least they didn't shock us down in the camps. She snarled at her. What do you know? That earned her a scowl. Enough to pity you and want revenge. Raven turned her head and spat upon the floor. And people say my tribe is fucked up. Summer slapped her arm. Raven! What? A dark brow arched. There are some lines even we don't cross. Cinder hiccuped once before she could clamp down on it. Support. She'd not expected it from Sienna or Raven. Papa and Mama, of course. Maybe even Auntie Summer. Everyone looked furious. Said fury drew a blink from her. Revenge? She'd never thought of it. Her life had been a whirlwind of terror and fear and hiding until Naruto found her. Back then, she'd just wanted to get away. Now, something stirred in her. Heat flared in her palms. They made me feel like nothing. Naruto tucked her into his chest. "Screw that! You're not." "I know." Her little head bobbed. "Because of you, I am everything." He drew her into a fierce embrace. One Willow joined from the other side. "Me too, Tilda." Summer dove on them with an airy giggle that sounded just a little too forced. Cinder stole a glance at the huntress as she squished up against them. Those silver eyes were deadly daggers stabbing not at her, but Naruto. They seemed to come to an accord in that moment, because the blondes nodded. He looked thrice as angry, for his blue eyes had gone red again. They glowed in the faint light. He looked away and began to fiddle with his mechanical arm. Wait, hadn't everyone brought their weapons? An ominous click rose in her ears. "Mob Papa?" She caught him loading a dust bullet into his arm. He was smiling. It was not a pleasant smile. Why are you loading your arm?" "No reason." "Every reason. Just want to make sure the firing mechanism isn't damaged. Never know when I might need to shoot someone." He snapped his false fingers and a blade burst out of his wrist. "Oops." His tone didn't convey even an ounce of apology. "How silly of me. How did that get there?" "Naruto," Willow admonished, "you can't kill them." "No matter how much they deserve it." Cinder wriggled over. Her eyes widened. Willow was filling her rapier with dust. "I'm not going to kill them." Cinder turned back and found Naruto's smile was brittle, ready to shatter at the slightest provocation. "I just want to talk to them loudly, repeatedly, with my fists, and quite possibly Mjolnir, but who's counting? Not like you can kill someone with a hammer." "Technically you can." "Well, you can't kill someone with a scythe." Summer chirruped, patting the collapsed weapon at her back. Raven didn't even try to play along. "So, what'll it be? A quick death or a slow one? I'm preferable to the latter, really." Cinder felt the gears of her mind slowly come unstuck and begin to turn anew. This was actually happening. Everyone was openly discussing murder as if were an everyday occurrence. They'd get away with it too. Naruto and Willow were set to inherit the SDC. Summer had a glorified fast travel system in the form of Raven. If they took it into their heads to kill someone, they'd be a clear continent away before anyone could hope to catch them. Wait, we're really doing this thing? Sienna realized it too, because she sprang upright in her seat, wild glee burning in her amber eyes and a smile tearing across face. "Bitchin'! Let me get in on this." Naruto laughed, pulled a knife from his sleeve, and offered it to her alongside her whip. "Thought you'd never ask." "Hide the knife." It all but vanished into her bodice. She snapped off a salute. "Yes, Daddy." Cinder bristled and held tight to his arms. "No, he's not yours. He is if he treats me like this." "Do behave, girls." Willow was little better. Though she spoke against violence, her eyes were cold and hard, like a winter storm. "No, a blizzard." Even Raven had drawn Uman and surreptitiously started to sharpen her blade with a whetstone she somehow managed to smuggle in. Who knew where she kept it? A pang of realization struck Cinder like the moonlight. They were angry. All of them. Not at her, but for her. Sienna looked ready to start a war. Tears burned in her eyes. "Why? Why not?" Willow pulled her close. "You're our child?" Didn't it just feel lovely hearing that? "And my niece," Summer seconded. "If ever I have a daughter, I will not treat her as those witches did you." That's Raven speak for you." Summer flip-flopped a hand. "Pretty much means the same thing." "Damn straight!" Naruto pumped a fist. "They mess with one of us, they mess with all of us. Speaking of mess, it would be a shame if that bitch tripped and broke her neck." Raven sneered. "Or drowned in the punch bowl." Sienna raised a hand. "What if she fell down some stairs?" Raven rounded on the girl. "Now there's an idea. We can't be blamed if someone has an accident." Willow pinched the brow of her nose. "You lot, we can't simply kill these people." All eyes rounded on her. "What, you pussin' out on us, Schnee?" "Hardly. Death is a mercy." Willow finished, settling her hands into her lap. "They deserve no such mercy." Summer clapped slowly. "There's the Willow I remember." Naruto nodded. "Couldn't say it better myself." "Well, damn." A low whistle came from Raven. "Now there's the kind of spine I like to see." "Where were you hiding it all this time?" Willow waved a fist in the air. "It's right here. Would you like me to feed it to you?" "Ha!" She smiled. "We might just get along after all, Schnee." Willow made a face. Gods, I hope not. You make me ill. Now we're on the same side. Naruto pushed himself between them before they could come to blows and steered to the conversation toward more violent waters. A tiny giggle fled from Cinder's lips as the conversation intensified between the five of them. She listened into stoic silence, content to let them plot. All her fears seemed so silly now. Tiny even. She knew why she was afraid. She'd good reason to be. But now that dread was replaced by a different feeling altogether. She seized upon it, even as if it lifted her spirits and wrapped her in warmth. She had a family. They would protect her, and one day, someday soon, she'd be able to protect them in return. The rest of their ride over was made in comparative silence, broken only by the sound of weapons being sharpened and plots prepared. In the driver's seat, Sebastian hummed a merry tune, only barely muffled by the low divider between them. It sounded like getting away with murder. All too soon they arrived. The limousine pulled up swiftly among others, bringing with it the muffled noise of conversation. Cinder's nerves, already frayed, threatened to run away with her. She clamped down on them and sat up straight, just like she'd been taught, checked her hair, and made certain her sheaths and the weapons within were secure beneath her coat. Her hands touched the hilts and took some small comfort from them. If anyone tried anything tonight, she'd be taking hands, assuming they even recognized her. She wasn't the urchin she'd been when she fled this place. Keep the engine warm, Sebastian, Willow instructed, just in case. As my lady wills. The divider rolled down to reveal the A Merry Red Eye winked at Cinder. Have fun, little Schnee. Try not to get any blood on your dress. Cinder felt the beginnings of a smile pluck at her face. Huh, neat. She liked this butler. He understood. Willow sputtered and flung a cushion at him, but by then Naruto was already stepping out. His real hand came down, first for her and then Willow herself, guiding them out of the car. Remember, Naruto dove in for one last hug. If anyone touches you, you'll punch them out. She smiled back. Good girl. For presenting Naruto and Willow Schnee, someone announced. Accompanied by their daughter, Cinder Schnee, Cinder let the words wash over her and took strength from them. All eyes fell upon her. It felt like a lifetime since she'd last set foot within these wicked walls. She'd been a mouse, cowering and weak. Afraid. No more. She lifted her chin and strode into the lion's den. For .00.0, the hotel grounds were resplendent in traditional Atlas colours. Almost too much so. Naruto grit his teeth until he felt a molar crack. Too rich. Too gaudy. It felt ugly somehow. Maybe that was just his own opinion. He didn't think the inside would be much better. He didn't like the idea of being pressed into a suit to begin with, much less parading around like some piece of meat. Cameras flashed, and he tried not to scowl at them, even as he ushered Cinder and Sienna out of the car. They were not spared by the media. Damn vultures. Willow seemed to appreciate it even less, judging by her pinched expression. Nevertheless, she stepped up beside him. Shall we? She offered him her arm. Things weren't quite right between them. Not by a long shot, but this was a start. An olive branch, an overture of peace between the two of them. He looped his limb in hers. Not a fan of this. Naruto sought Cinder with his eyes as Raven sauntered away. Sienna shadowed her with Summer only 2 steps behind. Their daughter looked skittish, but she hid her fear well and kept to her chaperones. She'd come far. Summer would be keeping an eye on her tonight. He didn't even need to ask. He'd seen Raven glance their way with her hand on Omen's hilt, too. If anyone tried to make a meal out of her past, they were going to eat a knuckle sandwich. Consequences be damned. She's being brave, Willow whispered in his ear. Have some faith. No need to watch her so closely. The father in him remained paranoid, wary and alert. What if someone tries to snatch her? His partner patted a hand to Sable and flicked a glance at his mechanical arm. We're armed. So is she, thanks to your training. He caught a hint of maternal pride burning in her words as they warded off another reporter. And besides, the unicorn is hosting us, not the other way around. These people won't make fools of themselves if they know what's good for them. If they do, here at last, her placid smile gleamed with a hint of steel, I'll see them sued into oblivion. They'll not lay a hand on their head if they know what's good for them. Huh. He grinned. I didn't realize you could be so scary. Yes, well, you're to blame for this. Her elbow hit his ribs. I hadn't planned to be a mother this soon. Take responsibility. Sure. He laughed and waved for the cameras, trying to hide his grimace. Where would you be without me? Not here, she grumbled, guiding him up the steps. Probably on the arm of Jacques. No, thank you. Something in him slipped. I'm glad. Willow blinked quickly, long lashes fluttering in confusion. Pardon? He's an ass. Naruto growled, all but biting off the last word. Not worthy of you. Maybe it was the anger on his part. Jacques hadn't made a good first impression. Hell, the kingdom itself had rated pretty damn poorly in his eyes already. White Fang riots, attacks in the street, a stark divide between the rich and the poor, pompous idiots with their heads shoved so far up their rear they couldn't see daylight. Not to mention the torment Cinder had suffered here. Someone needed to take charge. No, someone needed to fix this mess. Then take action. Kurama scoffed. Mantle isn't going to fix itself, you know. Yes, well. Willow's cheeks went rosy, and she looked away, distracting him. I'm glad you saved me from him. And she swallowed, a hint of pink creeping into her ears. I'm glad we made up. We were being childish, the both of us. I'll not act like that again without good reason. You have my word. The silence stretched on between them like a rubber band, threatening to snap at any given moment. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. Willow! The silence stretched on between them like a rubber band, threatening to snap at any given moment. She squeaked in surprise when his arm swept around her and held tight. You dolt! What are you doing? Stop pulling a Summer and let me go. Nope. Naruto buried his face in the crook of her neck, uncaring as the cameras flashed and his partner turned scarlet. Oh, gods, you're talking like her now. She's contagious. He laughed. Don't care. This felt good. It felt pure. It felt right, like it was meant to be. He reveled in it and held her close, content to just be himself for a moment. I don't want us to fight anymore, he muttered into her shoulder. Let's talk things out next time, yeah? Promise? She clutched at him. Neither do I. Still, I'm expected to sing tonight. You can't hold on to me forever. You are. He pulled back. I've never heard you sing before. Didn't know you could. Of course. The heiress granted him a coy smile. Perhaps I'll give you a private concert tonight, if you're good. Now it was Naruto's turn to choke on his words. Did she just... Well, tonight promised to be a novel experience. Much to his chagrin, the glass unicorn proved itself worthy of his irritation. Not only was it an enormous, luxurious, multi-story hotel that dominated the street, but it was even larger within. Hosting a towering 5 floors beyond the lobby, its ceiling was forged of glass, much like its namesake. The interior walls were an ungodly golden brown in colour, and it bore red carpets along the floor. Had that been the end of it, he could have at least ignored the milling dignitaries and their entourages. It was not. Sure enough, the hotel's lobby lived up to its name, hosting various glass sculptures of creatures of Grimm, including Ursai, sea felongs, sabres, and beowulfs. They looked real, almost too real. Someone had gone to great lengths, and likely a great deal of money, to make it so, uncaring for the cost. In another life, he might have thought it beautiful, but now that he knew of the horrors that had transpired here, he could help but find them ugly. He wrinkled his nose at them. Tacky. On his arm, Willow huffed in agreement. I agree. It's overdone. A well-dressed woman tried to catch his eye, but he tactfully ignored them. The spike of negativity emanating from her was not so easily dismissed. Envy, greed, wrath. He felt it shift from him to Cinder and knew he had his mark. Despite his best efforts to hide it, his scowl deepened. Still, he didn't intervene. He waited a little longer. 2 seconds. 3. Gotcha. This, then, was Lady Tremaine. The madam couldn't be anyone else. When she made a move toward his daughter, Naruto glared bloody red daggers at her. Killing intent arrowed forth in a vicious, targeted burst. Willow felt it, close to him as she was. She didn't bat an eyelash when this so-called madam toppled like a fallen tree. Oh no, the heiress feigned dismay. It would appear she fainted. Too bad. So sad. Somebody get help, please. And if the woman just so happened to soil herself in abject terror and crack her head on a table as she fell... Well, accidents happened all the time. A few voices cried out and help rushed her way. Naruto steered Willow in the opposite direction, leaving none the wiser. She had spoken truly. Death was a mercy. And wouldn't you know it? He was fresh out at the moment. Tremaine would be dealt with later. Unfortunately, their trouble didn't end there. Excuse me. A smartly dressed man in a military uniform met them only a few steps into the parlour. Might I have a moment of your time? Willow blinked. And you are? James. Captain James Ironwood. The man offered them his hand, and without thinking, Naruto clasped it in his own. Ozpin told me you might be here. It's a pleasure to see you again. Naruto nearly choked on his spit. Ozpin? Why was he here? Raven and Summer hadn't told him anything about that. Really? Ice blue eyes burned on his shoulder. You know him? The blonde's brain whirled, alarmed to find that he recognized the man standing before them. He seemed familiar, and he remembered having words with him, despite never laying eye on him. Moreover, his choice of words triggered all sorts of alarms. Again? Oh, bugger. Even long after he'd dispelled them, his shadow clones were still coming back to haunt him. It was Sienna all over again. Well, not quite. James didn't look like he wanted to strangle him. Appearances could be deceiving, however. We've met, he muttered. It's a bit of a long story. Well, that settles it. You need to be more careful with your shadow clones. Who knows what the Rescott did down in Mantle? That said, the soon-to-be general granted him a curious look. I have a few questions, if you don't mind. Naruto cast one last fretful gaze Cinder's way. Have some faith, Willow said. All right. 0.0. 0.0. She could do this. Be brave. Cinder willed herself to breathe as she drank from the punch bowl. The liquid was red as blood and cool against her throat. It didn't do wonders for her nerves, no. Focus! Breathe! In and out. Deep breaths. Calm. She was calm. Nothing could faze her. She could do this. When fear tried to rear its ugly head, she burned it to ashes with her anger. Anger was good. Anger gave her focus. She'd take anger over fear any day. She fed it into her semblance and felt the air warm around her. The stifling air kept people away. You're twitching. Chill. Well, it kept most people away. Am not? She sulked. Leave me alone. Cinder scowled into her now empty glass. It was beginning to fracture in her grasp. With a supreme effort of will, she dialed her semblance back and reached for another. No can do. Sienna batted her hand down. Gotta keep an eye on you. She rounded on her with a soft hiss. Why do you care? Dark ears twitched. Because we're alike. We're nothing alike. Damn it all, Sienna. Why couldn't she make sense? The Faunus had always been a bitch to her. Until that conversation. Cinder wasn't sure what to think of the tigress now. What did they have? An understanding? Rivalry? Partnership? Whatever this was, she wasn't sharing Naruto. Papa was Papa. Mama was Mama. She couldn't have them. And yet Sienna dared to call him Daddy. Cinder was determined to hate her for that, if nothing else. She wanted to hate her. She needed to hate her. If not, she'd go mad. Sienna took the cup from her hand and set it by the bowl. Cinder couldn't hate her for that. Look, when she stepped between her and a third glass, Cinder almost reconsidered. You're pissed. I get that. But you're gonna crack at this rate? Hear me out. You're looking for those 3 bitches, yeah? Cinder begrudged her a reluctant nod. Nothing more. Well, the boss just knocked out the big one. Sienna stabbed a thumb over her shoulder. I thought you should know. Cinder followed it and nearly flinched as a pair of waiters carried a stunned woman past them. It was her. Older, more wrinkled and smelling faintly of urine, but her nonetheless. There was an ugly purple welt upon her forehead suggesting she'd suffered a nasty fall. Pity she was still breathing. She caught Naruto's eye across the room as the help carried Lady Tremaine away. He looked past someone, a man in a military uniform, and favoured her with a sly wink. A warm flush roared through her veins. Ha! Victory! One down. Maybe he was setting a bad example for her. Right now, she didn't care. With renewed scrutiny, she rounded on Sienna. Just what are you suggesting? Targeted aggression. The Faunus granted her a grim grin. Find the bitches who hurt you and hurt 'em back. Like your old man did. Just like that. Cinder frowned and touched a finger to her chin. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. There we go. Sienna's grin turned vicious. Now you're thinking like a Faunus. A hand was offered. Cinder clasped it. An alliance was formed. Just in time, too. Well, well, if it isn't Cinder. She knew that voice. No. Voices. They'd found them first. A surprise, but not an unwelcome one. Turning on one heel, she was mildly surprised to find herself looking down on Lady Tremaine's daughters. What were their names again? Anastasia and Drizella. She'd hit a growth spurt. They had not. Her tormentors looked thinner than she remembered. Weaker. There were dark circles under their eyes, suggesting a lack of sleep or, better yet, that they'd actually been forced to work in her absence. It would seem that hard work had disagreed with them. Oh, but it very much agreed with her. Pride spread its wings in her heart, and she let it burn like a phoenix, shearing away the last dregs of her fear. Why had she ever been afraid of them? They were so small now, so petty. They wanted to put the fear of gods in her, to make her the weak one. More fools, they. There was so much she wanted to say to them, so many ways in which she longed to hurt them. She spent a good 3 seconds considering her options. An eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, evil for evil. They owed her a debt of misery, and she would collect tenfold. Well, one of them, she couldn't remember which, scowled at her. Don't you have something to say to us? And there it was. They overreached themselves. Petty girls grasping at greatness. What did they know of strength? Nothing. She could kill them both with one hand tied behind her back. She wouldn't even need her blades to do it. A single touch to their faces would leave them shrieking in pain. The thought seared through her, and she almost gave in. Almost. In the end, however, she remembered Willow's words. Mama was right. Death was too good for the likes of these. Anastasia and Drizella thought they held sway over her, and in return, she would take away what little power these girls thought they had. I'm sorry, Cinder Schnee smiled as Willow had taught her and tilted her head just so, dark hair falling across one golden eye. Have we met? Her rebuke struck the girls like a physical blow. Judging by their faces, it was the right thing to say. Behind her, Sienna loosed a low whistle of her own. Well, hot damn. Somewhere in the background, she heard Naruto laugh. That's my girl! Chapter 11. See, that's the thing about villains. They seldom think. The really nasty ones never consider the consequences of their actions at all. Why would they? They have power. Their victims don't. Rather than use their gifts for the greater good, they lord their strength over others like it's their God-given right. They never stop to consider that somewhere, somewhen, somehow, someone might be watching. They never ponder what might happen to them if the shoe were on the other foot, if the same were to happen to them. And guess what? I was watching. That's my daughter you just tried to put a collar on. Let's see how you like it. Tilda, if it's for my daughter, I'd gladly kill monsters. At the stroke of midnight, part 1. And here, we go. Slowly at first, pushed at an unnatural angle by unseen hands, a window in the Schnee Manor creaked open. Not from within, but without. Camouflaged palms pushed against the glass pane and forced it apart with infinite care. A bitter breeze whistled through the now open aperture, bringing with it the faint whine of the night. None paid it any mind. None noticed it at all. None saw a thing as a humanoid shape chivied their way through the window and closed it behind them with a deft flick of the wrist. Invisible boots padded against the carpet. Their bodies shimmered and became solid once more, revealing a figure clad in dark leathers with darker eyes and silver hair bordering on grey. A confident smile flashed in the moonlight. Marcus Black looked left. Marcus Black looked right. Marcus Black swore softly and rolled his shoulders. Bloody hell, that semblance is a bitch on my reserves. Such a shame, too. Invisibility was one of his favourites. That fellow in Mistral had been loath to part with it, but part he had. Then he'd parted with his head. Such a shame. Dead men told no tales and all that. Rich types were easy marks. They thought themselves safe, untouchable. Pride cometh before the fall and all that. He was pleased to find that the Schnee were much the same. They hadn't taken any measures to keep him out beyond the ordinary. He'd staked out the manor for days, knowing his target lay within, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. Now he had it. That damn blonde was clear across Atlas at some fancy shindig, and he'd taken all his little friends with him. How convenient. So long as Marcus made sure to steer clear of any tricks and traps, because only a fool would leave their charge unguarded, he was certain his wit and will could carry the day. Really, it was only a matter of time now. Sneaking in had been the hard part. Disabling the alarm had been child's play. From here, the rest would be easy. Whistling softly to himself, he stretched out his senses, searching for that telltale spark of power he'd touched once before. Aha! There you are. Bright eyes flashed in the gloom and his grin grew, taking on a hungry edge. Did you really think you could hide from me? Silly girl. He didn't encounter a single maid or guard or anyone really as he roamed the manor. For one of the purportedly richest families in the world, the Schnee were awfully blasé when it came to any real security. Or maybe he was just that good. It was easier for one man to break into a manor than many, and with the recent deaths of his associates, he could move light as he pleased. It also meant the reward would be his, and his alone. Yes, sir. One fat purse of lean for Marcus Black, and all he had to do was finish what he started in that alley. With the single stroke of a knife, he would have wealth, fame, and power eternal. The man who broke into the Schnee Manor and survived to tell the tale. He'd be a legend for this. Life was good. Beneath supple fingers, another lock flicked open with a soft click. Then he was through to the hall beyond. Marcus poked his head in, gave the hall beyond a cursory inspect, and slipped through. Looming glass windows bled fractured moonlight into corridor, casting shifting shadows wherever the light touched. Mighty statues lined the walls, giant frozen knights standing silent in their eternal vigil. It was a strangely wide expanse, almost foreboding. He eyed them warily, half expecting one or more of them to come alive and hack him apart. They didn't, of course. Didn't stop him from scowling at them. Right creepy things they were, and he wanted no part of them. Beyond them, a few doors down and to the right, he sensed his target. Gotcha. His grin grew further still, bordering on the edge of mania. Come to Papa. The might of the Winter Maiden would be his. Screw his client and her lofty demands. Take the girl, she said. Bring her to me, she said. You will be rewarded, she said. Ha! Once upon a time, Marcus would have followed those terms to the letter before he'd seen Freya's power for himself. His client would keep the rest of their fee. In fact, this Salem chick could piss right off. He had more than enough to set himself up for life after his recent exploits. Marcus Black served no one but himself. And why shouldn't he? He was invincible. No one could touch him. Every semblance was his to take. Ha! Amateurs, he scoffed, reaching for the door handle. You'd think they'd guard a mansion better. On the contrary, my dear boy. A shadow fell over him. I sent them away. Better this way. No one to interfere. A sixth sense shrieked a warning. Too late. Move! His back howled in agony as a great sword carved a bloody trench between his shoulders. Marcus grit his teeth against it and flung himself forward in a roll. The motion aggravated the wound even further, yet saved his life as the keening blade carved a frozen swathe through the space he'd just occupied. Trusting to one of his many stolen semblances to repair the damage, he braced himself against a wall and kicked away, avoiding a second swing that would have surely shorn his head from his shoulders. On trembling legs, he stood and turned to face his would-be executioner. He found himself face to face with a great mountain of a man clad in a suit of white heavy plate, armed and armoured as if for war. A crimson cloak hung from his shoulders, fluttering in a breeze brought forth from the still open window. A might broadsword swung itself over his shoulder, still dripping with the thief's blood. Another clad hand pried his fearsome helm back, revealing wild white hair and a bearded visage known across remnant thrice over. Cold blue eyes like Arctic skies gazed back at Marcus, devoid of their usual warmth. Good. His attacker commended him gallantly. You're still alive. We have business, you and I. Blast it all. He'd been made by the man himself. This wasn't supposed to happen. Stand aside, old man. His voice rose in a warning. This isn't your fight. Oh, but it is. Nicholas Schnee cocked his head and considered him as a bemused wolf would its prey. Did you think I would leave my dear friend unguarded? Marcus stilled and the man's smile took on an wintry edge. Did you think I would let what you did to her go unavenged? Marcus clicked his tongue and lunged for the door. If he could just get past... An icy glyph caught him mid-flight and hurled him into a wall with an awful crunch. Aura crackled dully, leaving his right arm hanging limply as he lurched upright. He took hold of one of his many healing semblances, and it set itself with a grisly crack. His aura plummeted further. Damn Schnee. Still, this presented an opportunity. If he played his cards right, he'd walk away with more than fine. We do this the hard way. Dangers danced in his fingers. I always wanted a Schnee semblance. Nick scoffed and raised an armoured first. I'm afraid your desire shall remain unrequited, lad. They closed with a whirl of steel and danced a waltz of death. Marcus dodged a broad sweep to the inside, curved daggers seeking the Schnee's throat. That terrifying sword swatted it aside with contemptuous ease and countered with a low sweep at his legs. Marcus knew better than to block against a weapon so large. He danced backwards, feinted, then surged in again, aiming for the vulnerable joints of the armor. His blade skittered off a glyph and went wide. Nicholas barked a laugh. Marcus swore. The sword came in again, and he had no choice but to cross his daggers against it or find himself a head shorter. Metal sparked against metal, and they warped against the impact, driving him to one knee. His foe bore down on him, a cheery grin tearing across the man's face. Come now, don't be surprised. Even an old dog like myself can learn a new trick. Or two. Light leaped from his blade and blasted the assassin away, sending him tumbling down the hall like a flung stone. From there, yet another glyph caught Marcus in the air and accelerated his flight, ramming him into, then through, an adjoining wall. A booming roar chased him when he clambered to his feet, forcing him to fling himself to the floor once more as the lunatic threw his blade at him. Even then it tore a dent in his cheek before he managed to get clear. Just threw his blasted sword like a frisbee. Who the hell did that? Damn it! What the hell are you? You know who I am, boy. Nicholas spoke slowly, his voice a slow-moving avalanche grinding its way down the mountainside, sweeping all before it. I am Nicholas Schnee, son of Nathaniel Schnee, first of my name, and Warden of Atlas. You cannot pass. The greatsword came down again, burying its tip into the floor before the door. I say again, you shall not pass, foolish child. Some unidentifiable emotion flashed through those vicious blue eyes. I'll give you this one chance to surrender. I suggest you take it. A dull ember of anger sparked to life in Black's chest. There it was again. Those eyes, looking down on him, judging him, just like everyone else. He snuffed it out and willed himself to be calm. Anger had no place here. It would only get him killed all the quicker. He needed to focus. He hadn't brought his best tools tonight, arrogance on his part perhaps, but he hadn't thought he'd need them. What he needed now was time. Time to focus. Time to think. Time to muster up a good strategy before that great sword carved him up like a turkey on a platter. You think you've got me all figured out, don't you? He turned his head aside and spat on the floor. Spare me the prattle, old man. You don't know anything about me. My dear Marcus, here at last that stern visage began to thaw. I know everything about you. In defiance of that very fact, he placed both hands upon the hilt of his sword. I was there when you were born. I held you in my arms as you took your first breath. I gave you your name as you opened your eyes. No. Dread stirred in the assassin's chest, his unflappable calm ruffling in the wake of this sudden revelation. You're lying. A pale brow quirked. Why would I lie? What could I possibly have to gain from such a ruse? Everything. His mind bleated, even as his tongue became heavy and useless in his mouth. This was a trick, a strap of some sort, a ruse to make him lower his guard. He wanted to ignore, shove the words away like the lies they were and focus on the task at hand. But he couldn't. Angry maggots of doubtful fear burrowed deep into his heart and tore into his confidence. He'd never known his father. It had always been him and his bitch of a mother, a cruel old hag pouring poison in his ear until he smashed her head in. Your father is dead, she'd laughed at him in her final moments. You have no father. He died in the war. You are nothing, Marcus. Nothing. That's not true. Terror trampled his arrogance. That's impossible. Nicholas ignored him. Leaving you behind with your mother was the single greatest mistake of my life. His right eye began to twitch. Stop talking. Stop talking. Enough of your prattling. Be quiet. But I was blind. I did not see Morgan for what she was until it was too late. A snarl built in the back of his throat. I said shut up. No, I will not, dear boy. I am your father. No! Marcus felt his composure shatter. He surged in with a ghastly howl caught somewhere between a snarl and a scream. His tormentor held the line. And it's high time you were disciplined. Nicholas stood his ground and met his charge head-on, gently interposing his greatsword between his throat and the dagger that would have taken his life. Still gripping his mighty weapon with one full hand, the Schnee patriarch planted an armoured boot and drove the other gauntlet-clad fist into Black's unprotected stomach. The young assassin folded around the limb with a dry wheeze. A hand closed around his hair and lifted him up, dragging him around into a bruising chop with the hilt of his sword, one that left him sprawled on the floor. Nicholas could have slain him then, chopped his head right off while he lay there, wasted and gasping for air. Instead, he abstained and walked away. Like mother, like son, it seems. You truly embody the worst of Morgan Black. Nicholas knelt and retrieved his helmet, sweeping it onto his head with a sudden flourish to concealing his bearded visage from the world. I'm sure your mother would be so very proud to see what you've become. She always was a vile woman. Burning blue eyes blazed out at him from the narrow slit within. I had such hopes for her. Alas, she wasn't able to overcome her base nature. Now the burden falls to me. Marcus flung a hand forward and called upon one of his most destructive semblances. Lightning leaped from his fingertips, grounding it against the Shnee's armor. Enough! You have no idea what I've been through, what I've seen, what I've suffered. You think you're entitled to everything because you've had a hard life, because you suffered. Nicholas waded into the assault, boots clanking heavily against the floor. Suffering isn't enough, Marcus grit his teeth. What do you know? A mailed fist found his jaw when he tried to teleport, shattering his concentration and all but cracking his jaw. More than you, whelp. You can't just be strong. An armored hand tapped against the knight's skull. You have to be smart. You can't just be deserving. That hand rose again, clenching into a creaking metal fist to ward off another bolt. You have to be worthy. But all you have ever been is a spoiled child. His sword scythed down, turning the floor beneath him. The floor began to freeze with shards of frost. With your gift, you could have changed the world, ushered Remnant into the next age. His brow furrowed behind his helm in a deadly line. Instead, you forsook your morals for power. Now everything you are is lies, lurid and false. You are no warrior. You're just a bundle of second-rate semblances stolen from others. The blade flicked out again, gleaming with ancient runes the like of which only one man had seen. I, however, only need one semblance to kill you. Marcus shifted his right foot forward just so and took a stance. Are you really willing to die here? For some woman, I may fall. Blue eyes narrowed within their helm. But not like this. It won't be by your hand. And you? A deep, rumbling laugh filled the night. There was a time when I thought you could be redeemed. I see now that's impossible. Even if by some miracle you managed to get past me, something even worse awaits you down the hall. He heard the grin in his words, saw those azure orbs crinkle in a death's head grin. My son-in-law won't let you be after this. He'll come for you. You'd be wise to surrender now, while you still can. Another clash, another whirl that left Marcus winded and gasping for air. You Atlas elites are all the same. A snarl tore out of him as he found his feet once more. You think hoarding power means you'll have it forever, but it just makes the rest of us hungrier. He brandished another knife as he dove back in with reckless abandon. And I refuse to starve. Just die already. A storm of glyphs hurled him back. Honestly, children these days. Such arrogance. Rather than defend himself like any sensible fellow, Nicholas sheathed his greatsword with a put-upon sigh and removed his helmet. It clattered to the floor at his feet with an echoing clank that seemed to fill the entire manor. Somehow that terrified Marcus even more. Come then, allow me to show you why the Shnee name is still feared. Without warning, the temperature plummeted. Marcus grit his teeth against it. I'm not afraid of you. No? The Shnee patriarch granted him a farther smile. You should be. All throughout the hall the shadows began to stir. I have been called many things in my lifetime. Nicholas spoke calmly into the silence, his breath a visible plume of steam in the gloom. Before I was a father, I was a husband. Before I met the love of my life, I was a huntsman. Before that, I was a solider. He shook his head as though mourning a particularly foul memory. I did terrible things during the last war. His mouth screwed into a sour grimace. I was drunk on power, not unlike you are now. I knew I was strong and had no qualms for whom I fought. Anyone who stood in my way, be they grim or faunus or even human, died. The temperature plummeted yet further. Frost crept across the windows. Marcus stepped back. I killed and I killed and I killed until the battlefield ran red with blood. Those eerie shadows spread across his face, concealing his eyes from view. They did not hide his smile. I tore my way through every battle until I finally met my match. A creature who could not be killed. For a moment the shadows peeled back, revealing a weary and broken man. Defeat humbled me, making me into the man you see before you now. And then his visage hardened. But from all those deaths, Nicola raised his voice, his arms moving with it, my semblance grew strong. Anyone I slew served me thereafter. They still serve me even now. An army of loyal servants bound to me in the afterlife and beyond. A small, bitter laugh tumbled out his lips. I no longer remember their names. At night, I hear their screams in my dreams. Do you know what they called me? Marcus gulped. I'm about to find out, aren't I? Nicholas Schnee raised his arms further and smiled. My dear boy, Remnant once called me the Night King. Behold. With that declaration, Marcus Black felt the last dregs of confidence die a horrible death, because a dozen glyphs had just burst into life behind the elder Schnee, and from them an army emerged. 0.0. Have we met? Those words were only the first volley, the initial salvo in a war that had been a long time in coming. Watching her stepsisters simmer and seethe like the petulant children they were gave Cinder Schnee more pleasure than any training regimen. She revelled in the silence that followed. She drank it down like a fine wine, though she'd never tasted such before, savouring every drop like the delicacy it was. She watched their confusion morph into anger and awaited the inevitable eruption that was sure to follow. Let's go, Sienna. She turned and walked, adding insult to injury. We haven't the time to waste with trash such as these. Her rival-turned ally quirked a brow but followed with a smile. See, that's more like it. We're going to get along swimmingly, you and I, Tilda. Behind them, the twins hissed. Cinder kept walking. Any moment now, one of them would absolutely explode. All planned, of course. She couldn't be seen to make the first move. Drizella recovered first and stalked after her. Why, you cheeky little churl. Come back. Come back here, I say. Respect your betters. Respect? A golden iris peered at her over one shoulder. You? What is there to respect? You are nothing. Her arm swung back with obvious intent. Amber eyes flashed with triumph. There it was, the moment she'd waited for. Quick as a flash, Cinder rounded on the shorter girl and stepped in to seize her by the wrist. A single twist wrenched the limb at a vicious angle, forcing Drizella to abort her hast attack. Her smug sneer vanished, replaced by a cry of pain. She tumbled to her knees and clutched at her mangled limb. Cinder devoured the fear that flowed from her. It fed a dark flame deep within her soul. That wasn't very nice. She twisted the limb further, drawing a keening cry from her former tormentor. I believe you owe me an apology. Never. Even in pain, the blasted girl remained stubborn. I owe you nothing. Trash? Trash, am I? Cinder's smile was all teeth. Then what does that make you? Despite her painful upbringing, Cinder was not a vicious child. She was simply pragmatic. On the streets, if someone wronged you, you had two options. Sit there and take it, or fight back. Such was the law of the streets. Such had been the way of Mantle. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, evil for evil. These two had wronged her. They had tortured her, tormented her. They owed her a debt of blood. She would have her due. Simple as that. And if she took some small pleasure in it, well, perks of the job. Revenge wasn't a dish best served cold. No! Revenge was a meal served scalding hot. Let her go. Anastasia tried to strike at her while her back was turned. The coward. Golden eyes narrowed. Sienna, do you mind? I'm having a chat with my dear, dear sister. Sienna needed no further encouragement. A quick flick of her heel and Drizella's twin found her face planted in the floor. Cinder turned and flung Drizella over her sibling, leaving the two of them trapped in a wild tangle of arms and legs. Silence fell over the hall. None of the adults moved to stop her. Why would they? No doubt they saw it as children squabbling, and no one wanted to mess with a Schnee. Unfortunately, that didn't keep the little twits from jabbering on. It irritated Cinder to no end. Weak. They were weak. Their words filled her ears in an endless animal bleat. She was strong. She was smart. She was worthy. Destiny had lifted her from the pits of squalor. Never again would she serve on bent hand and knee. She was the one being served now. No longer ruled over, she would in turn be the one to rule, because she had earned her place here thrice over, through fire and blood. And what had these two earned? Nothing. Nay, less than nothing. Their attempts to tear her down were just that. Attempts. Whatever these two thought, they held no power over her. The tables had turned once and for all, and they would never turn back. She could burn them alive. Hack them apart? She could make them hurt, and they would be unable to defend themselves. Maybe she should. It would be so simple. Just one touch and she could sear their throats, rendering them speechless for evermore, leaving them silent as the grave. With an effort, she quelled that dark desire. No, she mustn't do that here. There would be witnesses. Papa and Mama would be disappointed. They had taught her to be better than she was, taught her very well indeed. She was a lady now, and a lady had many an awful tool in her repertoire. Besides, words cut could deeper than any blade. She could play that game just as well. Nothing wrong with putting on an act and twisting the knife a bit. Run along now. She made a shooing motion with one hand. I haven't the time to deal with peasants. Both girls balked where they. The taller of them scowled and climbed to their feet. Cinder allowed it, knowing what was to come. What did you just say? Oh dear, she feigned a laugh. Do you not have a brain between your ears? Must I repeat myself? She was a far cry from the girl they bullied once upon a time. She was taller, stronger. Her hair was longer. She had nice clothes and wonderful weapons. The seneschal had announced her as a schnee to all in attendance, and there was not a thing these two could do about it. They could only seethe and resort to petty insults. Throwing your lot in with animals, are you? How far you've fallen. Cinder quirked a brow. Father's a faunus. And a schnee. Are you insulting him? Their faces went white. That creature is her fiancé. Untrue. Cinder knew her papa was undoubtedly human, but she was content to perpetuate the lie for now, if only to see these witches squirm. Worry not. Instead, she smiled as Willow had taught her. I'll put in a good word for you. We might allow you to serve us someday. How dare you? Drizella tried to make a grab at her, then thought better of it when Sienna bared her fangs. Mother's been trying to catch the schnee's eye for years, and you just worm your way in? The cheek of it all. Laughter bubbled up in Cinder, startling them both. Worm her way in. She'd taken a terrible risk that day, and by some miracle, it had paid off. No worming involved here. Fate favoured her. Destiny demanded that she was to take her rightful place here, centre stage. And they thought to question her. Maybe mercy was too much for them after all. They deserved to squirm. On second thought, I take back what I said. She turned her nose up at them. They'd never accept you. The twins shared an irritated glance. Drizella found her voice first with a sly smile. Technically, you're still Mother's ward. She can take you back at any time. Sienna snorted. Yeah, not bloody likely. Shut your mouth, or we'll have you whipped. Once, those words would have put the fear in Cinder right and proper. Now, she had a family. Parents, grandpa, aunts, uncles. She laughed at them anew, a soft, lilting sound that only further fanned the flames of their ire to new heights. Is this what you've fallen to? She rolled her shoulders in a slim shrug. Petty threats? You have no strength, no power to call your own. It's sad, really. Drizella sneered anew. We'll see about that. Security! A large man padded towards them. What's going on here? Roads! Anastasia sputtered, jabbing a finger at Sienna. This animal threatened us. Cinder blinked. Rhodes? The name sounded familiar. Had she seen him somewhere before? She thought she might. The name tickled something in the back of her brain. Might she have known him better if she hadn't run away that fateful day? No. She shook the thoughts of her past down. It didn't matter. She was Cinder Schnee now. Cinderfall was dead and gone. She was weak. She had destroyed her. Fall could be hurt and bullied, but Cinder Schnee didn't matter. They couldn't touch her. The same could not be said for Sienna. She was a faunus. That made her vulnerable in their eyes. Come with me. Rhodes reached for her. We'll sort this out upstairs. No! She clawed his open hand away. Fuck off! Look, you're only making this difficult. A familiar rasp rose in the air before things could come to a head. Let's not make a scene there, big guy. Cinder rounded on the sound and Sienna with her. She expected to find Summer or even Raven. Not so. Instead, she fought a bird of a different sort sauntering their way. Crow? Where had he come from? You know, when Oz brought me to this little shindig, he tipped back his flask, drank mightily and wiped his mouth with a grin. I really didn't expect to have any fun. Guess I was wrong. Rhodes blinked. And you are your worst nightmare. Cinder shrank back half a step, pulling Sienna with her. Branwen was like Naruto in that regard. He didn't laugh when he was truly angry. He smiled, and it was a terrifying smile indeed. She could see the bandit he'd been in that grin, glimpse a keen edge that had been dulled by kindness and time. It looked to have returned in her absence. Raven's brother walked right up to Rhodes, heedless of the larger man's baffled look. The younger Branwen had always seemed so nice, like a tame, flightless bird. He didn't look nice now. Crow walked, staggered really, right up to Rhodes. His forehead met his. Don't be messing about with my nieces, you hear? I tend to get a little stabby when someone upsets them, Sienna sputtered. Not him too. Now, let's all take a deep breath. The girls flinched as yet another made themselves known. This is no place for violence. A cane clicked against the ground. Cinder knew the sound and rounded on it, alarmed to find that Ozpin of all people had come to their rescue. He seemed younger than she remembered, more energetic if such a thing were possible. There was a strange spring to the man's step that she hadn't seen in their last meeting, a curious gleam in his eyes that hinted at some wonderful secret only he knew. He looked like the cat that caught the canary and slaughtered its entire race. Papa didn't like the headmaster. Here, in this moment, she thought she understood why. Why are you here? She asked as much. I was invited, of course. Crow is my escort? He favoured her with a patient smile. Ty's wandering around somewhere hereabouts as well, said Smile dimpled a bit as everyone looked on. I had thought to bring Summer and Raven as well, but they mysteriously vanished. Cinder winced. Oh, not portals then. Did that mean Raven and Summer were in trouble? I don't suppose you'd know where they are? Cinder held her tongue. Rather than challenge her, his gaze sought out the offending huntsman responsible for this mess. Ah, Rhodes. He offered his hand and the man shook it. I remember you. How fares your father? Well, sir. Rhodes smiled. His operation was successful. He'll make a full recovery. Capital. Ozpin patted his shoulder. I trust there won't be any trouble? No, sir. Rhodes frowned at the girls, perhaps realizing he'd been had. Just a misunderstanding. Have a pleasant evening. Bereft of their guard, Oz found the twins next. I understand Miss Schnee's parents, he emphasized the latter with a black look at the Madamese girls, would be quite cross if anything happened to their charges. His cane clicked down, drawing a flinch from Anastasia and Drizella. You would do well to follow their example and better yourselves rather than cling to petty grudges. A stray spark of green flickered down the length of his weapon, and those flinches became a quiver. Do I make myself clear? Cinder blinked, somewhat taken aback by the display. Was Ozpin actually angry? For her sake? To be fair, the twins tried to rally in the face of his anger. Yes, well, we wouldn't— Oh, for the love of— Crow lacked such decorum and snarled at them. Scram! The cowards beat feet with one final threat. We'll remember this. Sienna whistled. Damn, I want to learn that trick. Cinder watched the frightened girls flee with their tails between their legs. Vindicated, she dared a smirk, her beliefs reaffirmed. There you are, Summer stormed over, eyes blazing. Why'd you run off like that? Do you have any idea? She saw Ozpin too late. Ugh! Ozpin saw her too, and there was no hope of retreat. So this is where you and Raven wandered off to, Miss Rose? His smile rooted her where she stood, the smile of a parent who'd caught their child doing something terribly naughty. I confess I had hoped to surprise you, but instead you surprised me. Most unexpected. She wilted. I'm sorry. Quite all right. It is a weekend, after all. A question nagged at Cinder then. She gave voice to it. Why did you help us? Why indeed? The headmaster was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, he sounded weary. I have made more mistakes than any man or woman alive, he barely murmured the words, eyes gone distant in some forgotten memory. I have no desire to make another. She sensed the contrition in his words and her face flamed. Thanks. Think nothing of it, Miss Schnee. He tapped his cane once upon the floor and departed with a quick glance over his shoulder. Give your father my regards and enjoy your evening. Do keep an eye on them, Summer. You as well, Crow. Me? Why do I gotta watch the brats? Well, Cinder preened at Summer instead, silently satisfied with their victory. We did good, didn't we? Sienna regarded the huntress as well, ears twitching. Summer sighed and patted their heads. Good girls. 0.0, 0.0. Cinder could certainly fend for herself, it seemed. Naruto watched the proceedings that followed with a small smile. His little girl, and didn't it still feel strange to say that, was beginning to grow up. She'd found her courage at long last and woe betide anyone who got in her way. With someone like Sienna at her side, he was sure her future would be a bright one. Now if only Ozpin weren't here. For reasons he still didn't understand, the headmaster was here, and he'd seen him step in to help Cinder. He was grateful for that, make no mistake, but he still didn't trust him. Ozpin wanted him and Willow in Beacon. No doubt he'd try the same for Cinder. If he thought to trick or cajole her, he'd be disappointed. But it still begged the question, why? To what end? Why did he want them in Beacon so badly? What was so important that he felt the need to make an appearance at a formal function such as this? Someone tugged at his arm, drawing him back to reality. He blinked. "I'm sorry, did you say something?" Bemused blue eyes blinked back at him. "I can tell when you're spacing out, you know." A tiny laugh escaped him. "Sorry about that." Willow tucked herself against his arm. He tried to ignore the contours of her body against his. It was difficult. Her smile faded. "Did James really rile you up that much?" Despite himself, Naruto winced. "No, it's not that. I'm just out of sorts." Ironwood seemed was an admirable fellow, but he simply didn't know the man well enough to make a proper judgment call. In the end, he'd fobbed him off with a promise to speak later. Bad enough that he knew about his shadow clones. He wasn't about to leak anything to him if he could. Watts was at least someone he could trust so long as their interests aligned. Judging by their last conversation, the man considered him an equal, if not a partner and friend. And he was rambling again. Damn it! Willow snagged a flute of wine from a passing servant and presented it to him. "Care for a drink?" Naruto wrinkled his nose. "I don't like wine." "It's just a glass." "Willow." "Fine, more for me then." She knocked it back and drank quickly. Too quickly. Naruto quirked a brow. "I need a bit of courage, all right." She saw it and flushed. "Everyone's staring." Whispering, too. Curse his sensitive ears. He could hear the gossip. "So that's him, is it? Can't believe she's with a faunus." "Did you see the girl they adopted?" "Truly they have no shame." "I hate to interrupt. Actually, no. I don't." "On your left." Kurama's prodding had him standing at attention. In his peripherals, he saw someone moving. Well. Seemed the wicked stepmother was out and about again. Much recovered from her ordeal, she was making a beeline. Not toward him, he realized, but past him, skirting the main bulk of the guests, to seek someone else. His eyes followed her, and so saw Lady Tremaine stalk towards Cinder. Her stride was quick, her eyes intent. No one could doubt her motive. Raven saw her from across the room, saw the face he made, and moved to head her off. Didn't take much to see why, because there was a strangely familiar necklace dangling from the madam's right hand. Naruto noticed it at a distance, saw the gleaming golden jewel within, and frowned. Wait. Kurama unbent enough to growl. "Is that what I think it is?" "Dunno." His lips pursed into a frown. "Almost looks like..." A memory hit him without warning or word. Cinder had said something. "She made me wear a necklace with a yellow dust crystal in it. She shocked me every day. It hurt." Naruto's world went red, and he made a sound that had no business coming from a human broke like the dawn, and it was a bloody one. Panic reared its ugly head, blotting out rational thought. She was going to put that thing on Cinder. She was going to take her away. And then... Willow tugged at his arm again. Her voice was low. "Naruto!" He looked down at her with a frown. She looked alarmed. Frightened, even. "Your eyes, they're crimson." "So they are." He stepped forth, gently tugging his arms from hers. "Excuse me for a moment. I'll be right back." She saw his anger and kissed his cheek. "Don't make a mess, dear." Willow might have said something else too, but Naruto could barely bring himself to hear her. His heartbeat swelled anew, pounding furiously in his ears, drowning everything out. With it came an age-old anger he'd nearly forgotten. So this was what it felt like. He'd been calm lately. Too calm. His temper had stirred against Marcus Black and his predations. But here, now, he finally felt a father's fury. His old friend felt it too. "Are we doing this? Now? Right here?" "Yeah." Naruto surged forward at brisk walk. "We'll settle this. Right here. Right now." Only a few paces ahead of him, blatantly false smile bloomed across Raven Branwen's saturnine visage as she bumped into Lady Tremaine and accidentally spilled wine all over the hag's dress. Caught unawares, the mistress of the hotel startled and rounded on her. Raven fended her off with obnoxiously loud and false for laughter, the better to mask his footsteps. Just as well, that. Lady Tremaine never heard him coming. Why would she? He had no desire to be heard. His footsteps were silent, his will intent. The madam was not at all aware of him. She was too distracted by Raven's antics, bless her black heart. Maybe the surly girl wasn't so bad after all. No, Lady Tremaine was not at all aware of him. More fool she. But some were. He caught Cinder's eyes over her shoulder, and she startled at the sight of his searing scarlet slits. Then she realized just what he intended and her fear vanished. She glanced to the madame, still held in check by Raven, still blissfully unaware of the angry shinobi bearing down on her. Now her golden eyes gleamed with pleasure. She'd always been a clever little girl. Good. He wanted her to watch this. Tremaine turned at the last, some sixth sense, compelling her to glance away from Raven and over her shoulder. It didn't save her. Narrow eyes grew wide with fear. He fed on it. Calm down, Kurama warned. You're going to do something foolish at this rate. But Natudo couldn't be calm. Not here. Not how. For a moment he had briefly glimpsed his reflection in her eyes. He barely recognized it. It was a strange thing to see your very self staring back at you like this. He looked angrier than he'd ever been. Made sense, really. He couldn't recall ever being this angry before. Raven must have seen it too, because she immediately moved to Black Lady Tremaine with her body. Baffled by this behavior, the older woman tried to backhand her aggressor. It availed her naught. Hello, friend. Naruto's hand clamped down on her shoulder, fingers digging into bone. Let's go for a walk. What is meaning of this? The madam blanched. Who are you? Unhand me at once. He wasn't asking. Raven took hold of her other shoulder. Off you go. Lady Tremaine's face drained of all colour. Together they carried her off. Chapter 12. We must never give in to fear. We mustn't conform to it, nor let it control our thoughts. For fear is the enemy of trust, and if we allow it, fear will most certainly destroy us. Tilda the Future. At the stroke of midnight, Part 2, this was his moment. Jacques Gel preened before a full-length mirror. Fastidiously make the last of his preparation with great care. He tittered softly as he attended to his task, working with the air of a man possessed. Possessed indeed. The thought drew a wicked little chuckle from the fallen businessman as he observed himself. How fitting. Black and red suited him, better than white and blue ever would. His moustache twitched, concealing a small smile. It had been a had road, a long one indeed, but at last. His time was now. Vengeance was at hand. Humming softly to himself, he reached down and plucked a briefcase from the floor. Hefting it in his left hand, he headed for the door. Some might call him a fop or a fool. A prissy little peasant nursing a grudge, pining after a woman that was never meant to be his. They were only half right. He did have a grudge. But a peasant? Him? Nay, not anymore. He had transcended such paltry limitations long ago. All the mockery he had endured, the humiliation and denigration, he was well and truly beyond that now. He was beyond them. They'll see. His eyes flashed as he walked, burning with grim purpose. They'll all see. He gazed at his right arm and flexed his fingers, forcing them into a first. His arm was still a bit stiff after training, but it obeyed him well enough. Pale black aura crawled along the length of his limb, shrouding it in silent strength. He felt his semblance stir in response to his anger. A hound snapping at its leash, ready to rip and tear at its master's command. Really, this was enough to make a man downright giddy. It had taken some time for him to master his great new gift, but here at last, on this night of nights, he was ready. For he had been granted power, sweet, glorious power, the like of which this world had not seen in an age, and would not see again. His new associates were likewise equipped, armed and ready to do the bidding of their goddess. For what was she if not a god? And he was a willing servant. Jacques Gel was a pragmatic man. Salem had made him a fine offer. Only a fool would have refused such. His life for hers, and in return, she would grant him the righteous retribution he sought. And if he had to commit a few heinous deeds here, sow some discontent there, well, so be it. Such was a small price to pay for greatness. For Salem had shown him the future, the era that was to be, what should have been. What would be? He would change it all. He would take back what was his. It would all be his. Jacques reached his destination in short order, a hidden entrance carved in the side of a familiar hotel. Few knew of it these days. He hadn't either, until he was told of its existence. So many secrets in this world, all just waiting to be found. And he would find them all. Atlas was built upon secrets, and he would bring it crashing down. His earpiece squawked at him in a low voice distorted by a filter. Have you arrived? Of course I have. Jacques touched a hand to his ear. What kind of fool do you take me for? There was a pause. A fool with a grudge. Do not deviate from the plan. Our mistress will not tolerate failure. Jacques didn't dignify those words with a response. Instead, the businessman knocked upon the door thrice, paused, then knocked again. It opened for him on well-oiled hinges with barely so much as a squeak. A servant awaited him within, their young face hooded. It did not hide their smile or their laughter. Filthy animal. He didn't know what Salem saw in this one. They all served her in their own small way, he supposed. Even madmen such as this. "May I take your case, sir?" A pale hand reached for the item in his possession, quivering but a little. Jacques gave it with a small smile. "Do be careful, the contents are rather volatile." More laughter greeted his word. "Oh, I know, Tilde. How exciting." He passed it off to them and they scurried off with a merry titter. A shudder stole over him as he watched the young lunatic clamber into the shadows. Nasty creature. I'll have to watch my hands. His objective complete, the last gaoler slipped up a staircase and entered the hotel with a smile. He climbed a second set of stairs, bid his time, and after only a moment's pause slipped among the partygoers. No one spared him so much as a passing glance. It was near the stroke of midnight now, deep into their cups as they were. Few paid a late arrival much mind. And there, among them all, he saw him. Naruto Uzumaki. Jacques felt his world bleed red. You! All of his ire, all his rage, all his spite pushed its way to the fore, nearly breaking his iron self-control. Liar, thief, deceiver! Filthy faunus! Damn him to the blackest pit of Tartarus itself. He had taken everything that was rightfully his. Were it not for him, Willow would be eating out of the palm of his hand. His right arm twitched, and he clamped down on his wrist to restrain himself. It would be so easy to confront him here. To shout and rage and rant at him. To rip and tear. A few months ago, he would have done just that. Now he knew better. He couldn't possibly beat him in a contest of strength, for he would be no match. He'd seen the footage, but there were other areas in which he excelled. Areas in which his foe was not prepared to face him. The colour white caught his eye, and he noticed her near the dais. His lips twitched. In time, Willow would have learned to obey him. Respect him. Fear him. She would have been his, and all the riches of the SDC with her. Now he would have to take her and break her. Make her his by force. Such a pity. Jacques loathed used goods. But tonight wasn't about her. This was justice. His gaze slid back to the target of his ire. He would tear down everyone and everything that fool of hers loved. Death was too good for him. His punishment must be more severe. He must suffer as he had suffered, his dignity dragged through the mud, his name besmirched, his very existence cursed. The world though this man a hero. They were blind. He would make them see. And wouldn't you know it? Jacques knew just where to start. 0.0, 0.0, best. Night, ever. Cinderschnee positively preened, little legs twisting from side to side as she swayed in place, all but ecstatic in her triumph. There was a high, wild light to her golden eyes. To a passer-by, they almost seemed to burn with an inner fire. Her smile could only be called smug, for it was the smile of a girl who had won, and without lifting a finger. Truly there could be no greater victory. It was a rare thing to see one so guarded lower her barriers like this, let alone in public. Almost made the little mastermind seem more human somehow. Sienna Khan watched her in turn and tried not to smile herself. Wow, empathizing with a human. Never thought I'd see the day. The thought drew her up short, let alone this one. At a glance, it might have seemed perfectly normal for one so small to squirm in thinly veiled delight as they enjoyed some dessert. Children often did that. Not so long ago, she would have thought the same now she knew better. Behind that youthful facade lay a keen mind, sharp as a knife and thrice as deadly. If Cinder was smiling now, it meant she was plotting something for later. And if she was plotting something, well, it meant things were going to become very interesting, very soon. Fine by her. Peace was so very, very boring. You think so? The faunus tilted her head, ears twitching. Way I see it, night's just getting started. Golden eyes met hers and narrowed upon her. Oh? How so? Now it was Sienna's turn to preen. See for yourself. With a subtle flick of her wrist opened one of the many pouches she wore on her belt. It was the one concession she'd forced out of dear Naruto, after the servants had stuffed her into a dress. Now Cinder leaned over and gasped as she glimpsed the gleam of jewellery within. Jewellery and a hefty bit of lean besides. Sienna closed the first and discreetly opened another. She repeated the process 3 times. When the adopted Schnee finally raised her gaze, those amber orbs gleamed with a hint of wary respect. When did you... Oh, while you were eating cake, I found the bitch's bedroom and fleeced 'em dry. Sienna closed the last pouch with a pleased purr. Thought you might like that. Also, I may or may not have set the bed on fire. Cinder's mouth quirked into a rare, genuine smile. Not a smirk. A smile. Did we just become best friends? Why, I believe we did, Tilda. Despite her best efforts otherwise, Sienna just couldn't find it in herself to fault her fellow urchin. If anything, she was beginning to like her. In a single night, Cinder had gotten all she could ever want, the madam a disgrace, her children fleeing just to save face. Team STRQ had rallied around her. Headmaster Ozpin himself intervened when her wretched stepsisters tried to make a scene. They'd even come to an agreement of sorts, a pact of mutual aggression toward any and all enemies. Really, she hadn't thought this night could get any better. It just didn't seem possible at the time. And quite suddenly came round 2. She'd seen the Madame first, stalking towards them, much recovered from her earlier fiasco. Cinder didn't panic. Neither did she. Somehow, somewhere, someway, Naruto must have seen her too, because he and Raven swooped in like birds of prey, said a few sharp words, and carried her off. Ah! Vengeance was sweet. Now she could have her cake and eat it. No, seriously. Sienna was actually eating cake with Cinder right now. Red velvet cake. Say what you would about the glass unicorn, they made a mean desert. She even saw Willow near the dais, enjoying a slice of her own before her inevitable concert, but that wouldn't be for several minutes. For now, she settled in to watch the show as Naruto and Raven dressed Lady Tremaine down. And what a show it was. Sienna whistled at the sight, eyes agleam. Ooh, she cooed aloud. That looks painful, Tild. 0.0. There was certainly something to be said about the rage of parent. Raven Branwen had never experienced the like herself. She'd never known her parents, she wasn't a mother, nor did she particularly care for any squalling spawn of her own. She wasn't in any hurry to have children for that matter. If it happened, it happened. Simple as that. Yet seeing this firsthand, she could understand the concept, at least in theory. The fury of the young man before her was something to be wary of. It that alarmed and elated her in equal measure. Because right now Naruto looked absolutely livid. His blue eyes were afire in a way that would put any maiden to shame, flickering from blue to gold, then crossed red and back again, as though unable to decide which colour to choose. Even his body seemed shimmer with unseen heat as he loomed over Lady Tremaine, ready to pounce at the slightest provocation. The stupid bitch didn't realise it, of course. She was too busy trying to push her way past him. More fool she! Unhand me at once. But we have so much to discuss, Tilda. His tone was jovial as he intercepted the madame, a smile hiding the snarl beneath. I've heard so much about you, Tilda. You have? Lady Tremaine stiffened, some of her anger bleeding off in the confusion. Wait, who are you? Her eyes widened in recognition at the last, leaving the words to trail away. Oh dear, do you not know him? Raven felt a smile play across her pale visage. He's only engaged to Willow Schnee. Nobody important. Naruto's smile was just the wrong shade of vicious. I'd like to have a word with you about a mutual associate of ours. Ugh! Tremaine made a choking noise and pivoted on one heel, frantically searching for some semblance of support amongst her fellow financiers. They were nowhere to be found. She found herself alone. The few that met her eyes pointedly looked the other way. They had already steered her away from prying ears. Not out of sight, of course. That wouldn't do. This needed to be seen. Cornered in full view of virtually every other guest, there was nowhere for her to hide. Good, Raven thought. This should be witnessed. Back in the tribe, if you acted like a fool, you always paid for it sooner or later. Assuming your own stupidity didn't kill you first. More often than not, the chieftain would do the deed. They'd drag you out of your tent by the leg and beat you senseless in front of everyone. It taught you a lesson. It taught you to behave. Most importantly, it taught you to respect the pecking order. Tremaine was looking pretty damn low on that particular totem pole right about now. Really, dirt was above her at this point. Somehow she doubted Naruto was about to go and throw hands with this stuffy old biddy, amusing as it might be. But hey, a girl could dream. And at the end of the day, Lady Tremaine didn't have power. Not real power in the physical sense. She tormented those weaker than her, ground them down under her heel until they were nothing. Less than nothing. Cinder had suffered greatly at her hand. Raven took exception to that. She'd gotten kinda attached to the kid. Young Cinder was an exception to her ironclad rule. If only because she held a fire many her age lacked. Raven had seen huntresses with less spine in them than little Cinder Schnee. And that was saying something. She would have done well in the tribe. She would have thrived there, become a true warrior without peer. To hurt a child like her merely for entertainment, not even the tribe would do such a thing. She would never do such to any daughter of hers. Assuming she ever had one. For a wild moment she actually imagined it. Mommy? Little lilac eyes gazed up at her, rimmed by blonde hair, dark circles, and a bruised face. What did I do wrong? Don't you love me? Raven shivered and pushed the memory, or was it a vision, away like a diseased leper. No, not that. Never that. She'd never do such a thing. Any daughter of her would be cherished. They would be strong. Rage boiled inside her and she balled it up inside her fists, refusing to speak it aloud. A roar built in her throat. She clamped down on that too, refusing to give her emotions the outlet they so craved. To release them now would send her into a downward spiral that would end with Lady Tremaine, a greasy red smear under her boot. Her gaze snapped back to Lady Tremaine, just in time to catch the tail end of their argument. Laughter bubbled out of Naruto without warning. It was a short, sharp, ugly sound that startled even Raven. Give her back to you? Quite impossible, I'm afraid we've adopted her. His smile all but split his face. You'll find the paperwork quite binding. And that would be before Willow got a hold of you. Ever been buried in litigation before? I assure you it's not a pleasant experience. His eyes drifted to the necklace still clutched white-knuckled in the Madame E's grip. In her anger, the landlady missed his intent. Raven didn't. Oh, so that was his intent. He couldn't be seen to make the first move. Willow had a reputation to uphold, and he didn't want to make of a fool of her family here. Get a rise out of the madam, however. Make her act first. Well. You will give her back to me, you filthy faunus. A finger jabbed into his chest. At once, or I'll see you and your Schnee in court. That changed things. It never ceased to amuse her just how many people genuinely thought Naruto was a faunus. She'd certainly been one of them before Willow let her in on the secret. And I'll see you laughed right out of it. A low growl tore out of the warrior, heating Raven's blood with its ferocity. Tell me, have you ever worked a day in your life? His gaze flicked up and down the length of Tremaine, found her wanting and scoffed. No, I think not. Now's as good a time as any to start. He clasped both hands behind his back and square his shoulders, briefly reminding her of Nicholas. You'll certainly need to once the authorities learn of your abhorrent business practices. Her face turned a remarkable shade of puce. How dare you? How dare I? A blonde brow quirked, and for a moment, Raven wondered whether he was truly acting. I could say the same of you. Child abuse is quite the hefty crime in Atlas. But against a Schnee? Tremaine flinched and he pounced on her weakness. Nice necklace you got there. He leaned forward in return. May I see it? Tremaine jerked back and clutched the offending item to her chest. What? No. She tried to retreat, only to find her path blocked. Get out of my way, the madam glowered. Yeah, no. Raven couldn't quite keep the smile from her face as she cut off her escape. Not gonna happen. I'll ask again, would you kindly show me that necklace you're holding? Naruto's teeth gleamed with intent. After all, if you have nothing to hide, surely you won't mind. Their host sputtered, indignant as all her schemes continued to unravel before her very eyes. You uncouth brat. His gaze narrowed to frigid slits not unlike those of a Schnee. Wicked hag. Raven grinned. Checkmate. To his credit, the wayward warrior made no move to dodge the subsequent slap that followed. Quite the contrary, he caught it with his face. Deliberately. He turned the other cheek and smiled at her. Tremaine struck out at him again, only to find her wrist snared in an iron grip. Quite literally. Fingers of pure metal folded around her wrist, grinding the bones beneath. The cry that followed had many a partygoer wincing, but none dared to intervene. Of course not. The madam had struck first. This was comeuppance. Now, Naruto hummed out. That wasn't very nice. His captive gasped out a colourful curse. Release me, an angry brow quirked. Like you released Cinder. She was just a street rat. A hand blurred. Whap! Tremaine's head snapped to the side with an audible crack. A bloody tooth whistled through the air and clattered to the floor. All the world fell silent, but only for a moment. Then the distant hum of conversations swept up again. The madam stumbled back, eyes wide as saucers. She clutched at her dented face, gaze flitting between the two of them, uncertain who had struck her. She hadn't seen either of them move. "Why, you wretches! I'll see you hanged for this. You and that brat." A second blow caught her just above her right eye and rocked her backwards. Raven lowered her arm with a distasteful look. She rounded on her, blind to the blow that followed. Naruto's open-handed slap nearly ripped the not-so-poor woman from her feet. Tremaine clutched at the right side of her visage, the eye there already gone red and swollen. "Say that again." Naruto's smile was harsh and cold, like the name he'd so recently taken for his own. "Go ahead," he waved a hand. "I dare you." For a moment Raven wondered if the wretch would give up. She didn't. "That child is mine. Mine to do with as I please." Naruto didn't give her the chance to finish. "This, slap, is not, slap, acceptable. Slap, do you understand?" Tremaine recoiled with a whimper, clutching her face. "Scum like you don't think." The enraged shinobi talked over her pained cry, concealing his snarl within another smile. "They never do. They never consider the consequences of their actions." He tightened his grip, causing the madam to yelp and drop to a knee as he gave the nerves in her arm a vicious squeeze. She cried for mercy. Her pleas went unheard. They never stopped to think that somewhere, somewhen, somehow someone might be watching them. Guess what? He leaned closer still, pressing his forehead to hers. "I was watching. I will always be watching. Cinder is no longer yours to torment." His gaze lanced into her, a knife through her courage. "If you're smart, you'll relinquish any claim on her here and now." Tremaine went slack-jawed for a moment, but, annoyingly enough, rallied again. "Never. She's my property." "Not smart, then. Which makes this justice." Naruto ripped the necklace from her free hand as casually as one would snatch a fly out of the air. His hand moved again and came up with the remote bound to her belt. "As I thought. Shock collar with a dust crystal. Newer model. Quite the range on it, too. Should work for miles." He eyed it for another long moment, the icy facade never shifting from his face. "You were going to put this on Cinder, weren't you?" Her silence damned her. "What did you think would happen? Did you honestly believe we'd let you drag her back into that pit?" The madam opened her mouth to condemn him, to rant, to rave. Naruto stabbed a finger at her. "Be quiet." Raven gasped herself, and for a moment it felt as if all the light and life was sucked out of the world. They came rushing back a moment later, leaving her reeling. That, whatever it was, hadn't even been directed at her, and she'd nearly passed out from the force of it. The madam, possessing no aura to speak of and little in the way of constitution, was left a gibbering wreck. Nope, Raven realized. Not an act. Not at all. What did he call that before? Killing intent? To think it was possible to flatten someone with just a glance. With that thought, the seed of an idea was planted. Was it possible to learn such a power? "You don't get to talk." Naruto snarled at their captive. "If one more word comes pouring out of your mouth, I'll kill you." He would too. He was that angry. "I hate killing. It's ugly, nasty. But I can't stand people like you." His head snapped to the side as he turned and spat at her feet. "You're just as bad as Jacques. A match made in hell if I've ever seen one." "So what'll it be?" Raven quirked a brow. "You hold her down and I put the necklace on her." That blank look he gave her said he hadn't thought of that. Until now. She'd been right about him after all. The seeds of greatness were there, they just needed a little nudge. Once he learned to discard the concept of mercy, he'd be a frightful foe, both on the battlefield and off. This wasn't a huntsman academy. Atlas would eat him alive if he let it. Moments like these reminded her of his potential. He just needed to tap into it. That silly Schnee would thank her for this someday. Fair enough. His gaze swung back to the terrified Tremaine, and Raven preened at the righteous fury she saw there. "You know what they say," his eyes flashed anew, "best turnabout is fair play." She didn't see Naruto move. No, wait, she told a lie. She did when she seized the trembling Tremaine by her shoulders, but not the finer points of it. He simply blurred. One moment, he had the madam dead to rights as he crushed her wrist. In the next, his hands twisted, and in the next instant, that necklace was clamped firmly around her neck. The madam squeaked in surprise, hands flying to her throat, but it was already too late. A searing pulse of chakra seared the metal bands together at the base, neatly fusing them together forevermore. Dangling from her throat, the golden dust jewel gleamed ominously. She'd never be able to remove it now. Perhaps she realized that, because her lips parted to speak, a palm blurred down, clamping over her mouth. If you raise a hand to Cinder, you won't have hands. Fire flickered in his eyes, promising pain as her own widened in terror. If you try to demean or slight her in any way, I'll see your reputation torn to shreds. And if you even think about pulling a stunt like this again. He let a trickle of killing intent slip back into his voice, not enough to knock her out, but enough to make his point all the same. I will. End. You. Let me give you a taste of what that feels like. Naruto's thumb slammed down on the remote with a harsh click. Tremaine spasmed as the necklace activated, lips parting in a wordless cry. Ah! That's a taste. I'll be giving this to Cinder. He waved the remote before her face, watching her pale with every pass. If she ever sees you near her, or your daughters, well, I'm sure you can imagine what she'll do. He stowed the remote away in a pouch on his belt. Now, do the world a favor and get. Tremaine got. Think she bought it. Raven tipped a flute of wine to her lips as she watched the hag flee. In the tribe, a threat like that would meant death. You should have killed her. Naruto tossed his head from side to side. I can't go around killing people that offend me. It's not right. The huntress-to-be tossed her hair and scoffed. Might makes right, Naruto. It's all about strength with you, isn't it? And why not? She placed a hand on her hip and cocked her body to one side. His eyes never left hers even as she spoke. You proved that just now. That bitch, she growled the word like the curse it was, tormented your daughter. You took exception to that and thus took vengeance for her. Don't you see? A finger rose and thrust forward, stabbing against his chest. You made her stop. Tremaine was weaker than you. She wouldn't have listened to you otherwise. Her finger twisted, digging into his skin beneath the suit. You beat her into submission, verbally and physically. Thus might makes right. It really doesn't. It does. She all but snapped the word as she pushed closer to him. The distant bong 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 of a grandfather clock signaled the stroke of midnight. Raven smiled. You're going to be amazing someday. I hope I live to see it. Blazing blue eyes narrowed upon her. Raven offered a placid blink in return, emotions hidden behind a carefully crafted facade. There it was. That feeling. Like watching a fellow bandit sizing her up back in the tribe, one alpha to another. Naruto thought he could take her. Probably could. Their last duel had ended in his favor, but she hadn't been idle since they'd last met either. She'd been practicing with her semblance, honing her skills. She had a few tricks up her sleeve. He turned away. We'll see. Raven sighed. Still naive. He would learn eventually. But now wasn't the time to push. Movement danced in the corner of her eye, two small blurs rapidly approaching from the east. Didn't take much to guess who. A swift pivot placed her at his side and got her out of harm's way. Sure enough, Cinder slammed into Naruto's side, nearly knocking him down with the sheer force of her tackle. Golden eyes blazed up into blue, wide and happy, brimming with adoration. That was amazing! You made a fool of her. Naruto winced. Saw that, did you? I might have gotten a little carried away. No, you didn't. Sienna latched onto his other leg. You did plenty, despite the blonde's protests. Cinder buried her head into his leg and started babbling. Raven indulged herself for a moment and listened intently. The words I and love you might have been mentioned here and there. Best dad ever was certainly a common phrase. A better person would have extricated him from Cinder and Sienna, saved him from these children who adored him so. Raven had never claimed to be a good person. She simply was. Rather than rescue him, she left her fellow warrior squirming. I'll leave you to it then. She winked. Good luck. Raven sashayed away, hips swaying. 0.0. Ahem! Willow coughed politely into her fist. That single solitary sound echoed long and loud into her microphone, drawing a wince from all those assembled. Still, they accepted the cue for what it was. Someone dimmed the lights. A spotlight flashed on well above the dais, bathing her in faint ethereal glow. All eyes fell upon her. Blood pounded in her ears, hammering alongside her heart. This was it. Her moment. A lesser woman would have given into it, let it overpower her, hold her in its sway. She was a schnee. She did not falter. Willow took a deep breath to steady herself. marshalling her thoughts like a small army. Only then did she speak. A dear friend of mine recently reminded me of something important. Her gaze swept across those below the dais, taking each in turn. She saw Cinder standing across the way, preening under Naruto's watchful gaze, his hand on her shoulder. Sienna preened as the other mussed her hair. "We're all afraid of something." She chuckled ruefully when she found Summer and Crow, each with an arm wrapped round a sullen raven. A laughing Taiyang held a flute of champagne to her lips, forcing her to drink the so-called swill she so loathed. Each and every one of us feels fear. We all make mistakes, but that's what makes us human. She shook her head, dispelling the sudden chill she felt. The single quality that is common across every living creature on this planet is fear. Her words sent a ripple racing through the crowd, one born of uncertainty. Isn't it funny, then, that as common as fear is, we so easily underestimate its power? The silence became deafening. Fear of growing close to someone. Her gaze slid to Naruto. He met hers without fear. Her gaze glided away and caught that of Ozpin himself. The subsequent fear of loss. Sure enough, the headmaster raised a glass in agreement. Fear of failure. Ironwood himself winced beneath her stoic glare. And as more people depend on you, those fears can take on greater power. She banished that fear with a languid smile. But the fear itself isn't worthy of concern. It is who we become while in its clutches. She felt their spirits lift. A trembling pale hand rose, beseeching those who listened to her words. "Will you be proud of that person?" Her arms spread wide as her sides towards the fractured moon high above. "Will you forgive them? Will you understand why they felt the need to do the things they did?" .00.0. Arthur tittered merrily as he scrawled away at another line of cone. His moustache twitched in total triumph. "This will be legendary." .0.0. Will you even recognize them? .0.0. Cinder smiled as Willow's gaze settled upon her. One day, she would live up to this legacy. She was a Schnee, after all. Bust. .00. Or will the person staring back at you be the very thing you should have feared from the start? Per .0.0. Jacques Gelly adjusted his tie and looked on with a smirk. He touched a hand to his right ear. "It's time." Me .0.0. I suppose we all find out sooner or later. Willow took a breath to steady herself. For a moment, just a moment, she understood what it was to have power over people. It was a heady thing. All the world was silent, hanging on her every word. She had but to speak and they would listen. Wealth and influence had nothing on this sensation. It would be simplest thing to stoke their passions and have them fawn over her like the heiress she was. Were she a petty person, she might even accept their vapid praise. But she was more than that now. So much more. "This song is dedicated to the love of my life." Ice blue eyes met starry azure across the room. "He changed me. He saved me. This song is for him." He flashed her a thumbs up and her pale face turned rosy. "I'm afraid I haven't had much time to practice." A new song. One she'd practiced just for this occasion. "So this will have to be brief." Polite applause greeted her. "All right then." She closed her eyes and breathed one last time. Behind her, the band swept into a haunting melody, just as they'd been told. Willow's heart hammered in her chest, but she kept herself calm and moved to the first line. .0.0. Naruto looked up. "That song sounds kind of familiar." It did. He'd never heard it before, but somehow, some way, it spoke to him. Willow touched a hand to her heart as she continued her haunting ballad. Her eyes never left his. Not a once. It wasn't a particularly fast song. Really, it was downright slow, but words blurred together, but he understood them all the same. It was a song of fear, of fighting against it, of surpassing it, and fear of loss and love. The words rang within his heart like a clarion call, blinding him to all else. Something twitched in his heart, and without warning, the veil fell away. A realization struck him. Naruto gulped. "Oh dear." .0.0. "Fool of a boy!" Nicholas brought the hilt of his blade down, striking Marcus across the face in a vicious riposte. His would-be assassin crashed backward, bleeding from the nose. A hand went up, cradling another semblance, the fifth of such he'd seen tonight. The elder Schnee gave chase and swung his great sword in a vicious arc. Blood spattered his face. 3 fingers flew away, the price for the assassin's pride. A pained shriek split the night, so sharp and poignant that he hesitated. Marcus stumbled back, clutching at his bloodied fingers. Fevered eyes met his. "I hate you! You hate being powerless." The Schnee scoffed as his forsaken son kicked forward with a metal-shod boot, trying to close the distance once more. "Because you are. There's always someone stronger, son." He stepped to the right as curtain of wind ripped at him. "If you define yourself by your power to take life, the desire to dominate, to possess, then you have nothing." "Shut up!" Blue eyes narrowed to Arctic slits. "I will not, dear boy." Marcus evaded the claws of an angry Beowulf, tumbled under a great Ursa, only to find himself caught in the fist of an icy Beringel. The great ape showed no mercy. Firm fingers closed around his torso and squeezed with frightful force. His ribs creaked ominously. A raspy croak tore out of him. Still he clawed at the giant fist holding him. Nicholas grimaced, heart faltering at the sight. In another life he would have raised this boy, but he was too broken now, too twisted by his mother. With but a thought, he commanded his familiar to finish what he had started. "I am sorry that it has come to this, but there's no redeeming you. This is for the good of the—" A flung axe slammed into the Berengel's frozen forehead. His familiar twitched once, more open in surprise, then shattered it into brittle ice. Marcus tumbled free, hit the floor and sprang away into the shadows. How very irritating. He would heal, no doubt, and they'd be right back where they started. Blasted semblances. Nicholas still let him go. His attention was already elsewhere. An icy blue eye appeared over his shoulder. Whomever they were, he knew them not. She, for this could only be a woman, wore dark robes and a wicked full-face mask in the shape of what might have been a grim. Her hair lay hidden in a hood, denying him even that tidbit of information. She was tall, slender. He could discern that much, and little else. "More of you, then." He tutted softly and turned to face this new threat. "Honestly, you're like ants. It's a little sad, really. I didn't want to spill any more blood tonight." A low rasp emerged from within that mask. Misguided arrogance. "You will die tonight, Nicholas Schnee." The Schnee in question tittered softly. Was that supposed to be a threat? How uninspiring. "Child." He spun his sword down with a frigid smile. "My sword was once slick with the blood of my enemies. I have killed mountains of men and faunus alike. Hide your face if you wish. It means naught to me." With but a flourish, he brandished his greatsword over his left arm, ready to attack or defend at the slightest provocation. What's one more on the pile? With a single stomp, he summoned yet more glyphs around him, replenishing his fallen army in an instant, and his aura dipped that much lower. 0.0, 0.0. That was wonderful! Willow had scarcely finished her lullaby. Indeed, she barely made it 2 steps down the dais, before Naruto slammed into her. He was careful, of course. Wouldn't do to bowl her over after all. Still, her spine stiffened as his arms wrapped around her and a tiny little gasp fled from her lips. Naruto didn't give her any more of a moment than that. He swept her up into his arms, lifted her from her feet, and did a little twirl to spin her into the air. The crowd ate it up and applauded the display. "I didn't know you could sing like that." He set her down and clasped both of her hands in his, blue eyes well and truly alight. "Ah, you're incredible." "Really now?" Before his eyes, she flushed down to the very roots of her hair. "Did you like it?" "I had to improvise a bit. I loved it." It was an honest answer, one Naruto frankly gave little thought to. Perhaps he should have, but he didn't. Willow made a keening noise through her teeth. Why? Was it something he'd said? "Why must you do this to me?" He didn't have a chance to answer her. The music swung up. On a whim, he offered her his hand. Willow's eyes got very big. She stepped back. "What are you doing?" "What's it look like?" He grinned. "This might sound cliché, but may I have this dance?" 0.0, 0.0. This was happening. This was actually happening. This was actually well and truly happening. Willow couldn't move, couldn't speak, could barely bring herself to speak at all. Naruto pulled her close, laid a hand on her waist and another on her shoulder as a gentleman should. Here tore itself between fight and flight in equal measure. She wanted to bolt. No, she wanted the opposite. She wanted to hold him, to embrace him, ravish him, and all right. She was going too far in the other direction. When he let her take the lead, she was almost grateful, or it. The music was soft and slow, just the sort of tempo she'd grown accustomed to, more a waltz than a tempo. She soon realized why. A small smile touched her lips. Naruto saw it and scowled. What's so funny? You, dear. Was it just her imagination? Or did he shiver just now? Step. For all your speed and strength, I thought you would be a better dancer than this. Another step, swaying to one side. It's surprising. And a little heartwarming, if I'm honest. In a fight, sure. He let her lead him into the next step. But not in this fancy get-up. Nobody's perfect. No one is. The words warmed her so. She laid her chin on his shoulder. We're good together, aren't we? This time, there could be no mistaking the way he stiffened against her, not the faint rosy hue to his cheeks, nor the way his lips curled in a small smile. We really are. Without warning, he took the lead, twirling her under his arm. Willow's cold heart skipped a single traitorous beat. A voice of vice whispered in her ear. Mine, step. Another step. Twirl. You're a quick study. She complimented him, not trusting herself to say anything else. He smirked at that, not a smile, a smirk. It made Willow think things, terrible, naughty things that had no business being spoken of in front of good people. She imagined those hands roving lower in a way they never would. She stepped into him and he matched her, leaning close. His lips brushed her ear. Guess I have a good teacher. Her mind reeled. Bad brain! Betrayal! Don't go there! His words heated her blood, muddying her thoughts. She wanted to be first and foremost in his mind, the apple of his eye. She wasn't sure she could bear the thought of him with anyone else. And yet, everywhere he went, he attracted attention. Too much attention. It drove her mad. Callie? Gods, no. Her mind rejected such a notion out of hand. The woman was a temptress. Raven? Unacceptable. She brought out an savage side of Naruto that frightened her. Summer? Unlikely. She probably just wanted his arm, maybe. Besides, she tried to convince herself of it all, and wasn't quite successful. She would be his first. If nothing else, she would have that. Those fierce blue orbs flitted down to her lips, then back again. He wanted her, desired her in a way he did no one else. It made her feel strong, powerful in a different way. Stifling a tiny pang of anxiety, Willow shifted a bit closer, pressing herself flush against him. She loved him. She wanted to have children with him, lovely little white-haired girls with sparkling blue eyes and faint whiskered cheeks. Her mind conjured up 3 names in an instant, of its own volition, as if they were simply meant to be. Winter, Weiss, Whitley. They felt good. They felt right. Speaking are right. If you move. She whispered the words on a thread of breath. I'm going to be terribly cross with you. Naruto drew in a short, sharp breath through his teeth. Willow, her lips met his in a tentative kiss and then, when he didn't pull away, probed deeper. Her arms flung themselves round his neck as she tilted her head for better access. If he pushed her away, she was going to break. She just knew it. But he didn't. He simply held her. No, not enough! Her blood burned and she drew him closer, deepening the kiss to nip at his lip. She felt awake for the first time in forever, a fire in a way she'd never known. Her body ached for him. She didn't know how he felt about any one person, anyone else, and in this moment, she didn't care. Let any fool challenger come. She would meet them with ice and steel, with fire and blood. Mine. 0.0, 0.0. He knows too much, James. Far, far too much. Oz, you're being paranoid. Am I? The headmasters didn't take his glare off the dancing pair, unlikely as they were. One incident I could overlook as coincidence, but 2, 3... No, I think not. Exasperated, he gave up and downed his flute of wine in a huff. I thought it odd that he was so adamant against joining Beacon at the time. Now I see why. He's forming a power base in Atlas. His brow furrowed a bit as he contemplated the matter further. The Schnee family is all but besotted with his every deed. The White Fangs sing his praises. He's saved the Winter Maiden and now he's flirting with my students. Tell me, what am I to think of that? He could be an agent of Salem for all we know. A dark brow rose. I find that unlikely, given his behaviour. Damn it, man! Osbin buried his head in his hands. Not you, too. Another brow rose. Calm, old friend. Your anxiety's showing again. He isn't going anywhere. Yes, perhaps I'm overreacting. With a supreme effort of will and a deep breath, the immortal calmed himself. Regardless, I need to speak with him. I simply must, if only to know where his loyalties lie. Steely eyes swung back to the intertwined pair. Good luck prying him away from her for the next hour. To his credit, Ozpin blanched. Yes, well, I can certainly wait until they're finished. 0.000, all good things came to an end. Eventually, the music swung down and the duo found themselves forced to part. Unhappy with such an ending, Willow darted in and stole another kiss for herself. Naruto yielded with a surprised grunt. His mouth was warm on hers and she savoured it, fleeting though it was, until it wasn't. Pale fingers threaded in his hair, pulling him closer. His arms tightened around her waist, crushing her to him. Someone whooped in the background and cheered them on. Summer? Willow ignored them, holding on as long as she could. Finally, her lungs could endure no more. Neither could he. They pulled away at last, lips bruised, gasping for air. Her forehead kissed hers and she luxuriated in their shared closeness. They swayed together despite the silence, paying no heed to those around them. Naruto found his voice first. So, what now? I don't know, she admitted. Willow had no idea what came next. Not what to say, nor what to do. Spirits she'd never been in a relationship before. Never felt the touch of lust. Never thought her heart would thaw enough to care for anyone outside of her family. But thaw it had, and there could be no going back from this. She could no sooner return to her once frigid ways than she could turn back time. She wanted to stay here in his arms forever, or better yet, find some shadowy corner with him. Consequences be damned, and might I have a moment of your time, Miss Schnee? Naruto made a face. Willow mirrored it. She knew that voice. Sure enough, she turned to find Headmaster Ozpin only a few paces away. Hey now. Naruto stepped up beside her. Anything you have to say to her, you can say to me. Is that so? Surprisingly, Ozpin pounced on the bait. Very well. I'll be frank. I wish to speak with you. Alone. He cast an apologetic look at Willow. May I borrow him for a minute? Some of her stress must have shone through, because that steely visage softened somewhat. I promise to return him unharmed. Naruto bridled. You can borrow my fist. Be nice. Willow whispered to him before he could snap at the poor man. I know you want nothing to do with Beacon, but we mustn't make unnecessary enemies. He grimaced. Fine, fine. Naruto. She swatted his arm lightly. Behave yourself, mph? Her words became a startled gasp as he darted in to kiss her. All the strength fled out of her for a moment before she mastered herself. That, a tiny cry fled from her lips, that wasn't fair. You have my thanks. The headmaster smiled, suddenly looking years younger for it. I've heard incredible things about you, and I wanted to ask. A maid leaned low to whisper into Willow's ear as they withdrew further from earshot. Jacques Gel is here to see you, Miss Schnee. Her words were soft, almost fearful. He's on the lower level. Is he now? Willow absolutely bristled. She hadn't expected him to come crawling back. What the hell was he playing at? Send him away. I'm not interested in whatever he has to say. We've tried, my lady. The maid informed her with a grimace. He won't leave. Blast it. He was going to make a scene, wasn't he? Of course he was. Jacques struck her as the spiteful sort. She dismissed the maid with a glower and turned in search of him. Naruto was occupied with Ozpin, but he spared a glance for her. She waved him down and calmed him with a look. Where were the others? Cinder and Sienna had cornered Raven with Summer and seemed to be talking most animatedly while the boys looked on and made their bets. She was alone. Fine. She could handle this. She was a big girl. Jacques awaited her in the lower foyer, flanked by an absolute giant of a man. Gone was his grey attire of before, replaced now by an ebony suit with a striking crimson tie. He looked different, calm in a way he hadn't been before. Willow touched a hand to Sable, still bound in her belt, just to make sure it was there. The dust cylinders emitted a faint click as her thumb traced over them. She took comfort in the presence of her weapon, such as it was. Something told her there would be no niceties here. Best be ready, just in case. What do you want, Jacques? He looked remarkably unruffled for a man who was supposedly the laughingstock of Atlas. His smile spoke of silent confidence. Hello, Willow. You look lovely this evening. When he reached for her hand, she allowed it. Not so when he tried to kiss it. She ripped it from his grasp the moment his lips neared hers. A scowl slipped through his stoic countenance, and she took some petty pride in the knowledge that she irritated him so. He'd certainly irked her well enough upon their first meeting. Very well. His grimace deepened. To business, then. I wish to discuss a proposal with you. No, thank you. Where was he getting all this confidence from? It wasn't like him. He should have been humbled, should have known better than to try again. Whatever you want, I'll have nothing to do with it. As you wish. She wasn't prepared for his smile. I thought as much. Still, I had to try before this. Wait, he was giving up? Just like that? Why? An explosion rattled Willow's world. She rounded on the sound with a start, eyes bulging, only for a second blast to rock the hotel and nearly send her sprawling. Followed by a third, a fourth, then a fifth. Flames burst down from the ceiling with a wordless roar, sending debris flying from the rafters as yet a sixth blast detonated. Bystanders panicked, turning what had been a slightly inebriated party into a wild stampede. Everyone ran for their lives. She soon lost sight of Naruto and the others in the chaos. But not Jacques. He stood apart and his guard with him, utterly unruffled, and she realized who was to blame. Ah, what have you done? Just cleaning out the chaff, dear wife. Jacques made a show of adjusting his tie and crossed both arms behind his back, uncaring of the panic he'd created. It was so kind of you to lure so many people here. And so many fauners too. He wagged a brow at her and tutted softly. At a schnee gathering, no less. I suspect the news will be all over Atlas by the dawn. The roof creaked ominously overhead as fresh embers spread upon the walls and floor, setting it alight. Poor animals. Truly they were fools to trust you. Don't call them that! Her gaze snapped back to the businessman. And I'm not your wife. My dear, he scoffed at her words. You have no say in the matter. Hazel. Take her! The giant rumbled. As you wish. Willow reacted in an instant and kicked backwards, evading an attack that would have flattened her outright. Even as the giant pivoted toward her, she drew, sable-sketched a glyph beneath her feet. She could do this. She could take him. Jacques was a non-combatant. No threat, he couldn't hurt her if he tried. His guard was the true threat here, and only so long as she let him within arm's reach. White light flared under her heels, flinging her to safety. Sable tore free to slash through the air, tracing a silvery line of ice that caused the giant to slip and overextend on his second strike. There. An opening! She lunged forward. Behind her, Cinder cried out in pain. Mom! Help! Willow's concentration slipped for a moment. Her gaze tore back toward the fire and flames. Cinder! Jacques smiled at her exposed flank and uttered a single word. Pain. Her entire body locked up in a singular instant, betraying her completely. There was no other word for the sheer agony that followed. Every fibre of her being, every muscle, every cell clamped down as one. Her legs buckled, and all her power, all her strength deserted her. Semblance? It had to be. She fought against it, tried to push past it, to no avail. A shadow fell over her. She looked up. Hazel looked back, fist already hurtling at her face. In the final moment before impact, he spoke. I am sorry for this. Sleep now. Willow's world went black. Chapter 13, Little Jacques. What did you just say to me? I'm sorry, did you not hear me the first time? Shall I use different words for your little brain? Little man, little parasite, little worthless worm who delights in making noise and pretending he is important. That is all you are, all you have been, all you ever will be. Are you going to continue provoking me, little Jacques? Are you going to fight me, little Jacques? Is that what you want? Then come and die. Till to the future, waking the dragon. There are some things a man simply cannot forgive. This was most certainly one of them, because the world was burning. No, perhaps that wasn't right. The glass unicorn was burning, not the world. It simply seemed that way. Everyone was screaming, the world a riot of chaos and bodies and colour. Fire blazed as high as the eye could see, a great and towering blaze too wild to be natural. Flames crawled across carpets, clung to the walls, swept up the ceiling. Noxious black smoke poured from burning wood and upholstery alike, choking the air with dust as yet another explosion rocked the already crumbling hotel. It was into this chaos that Naruto found himself flung. Go, go! Move! He pushed another civilian behind him, ushering a mother and her child to safety. Get to safety! We'll handle it from here. Fire flared beside him and he slammed a fist down, tearing a hole in a nearby wall. He shoved them through and went back for the rest, ignoring the twisting pain in his shoulders. Ignore. Suppress. Save as many as he possible could. Moments before the first explosion, He'd sensed something and yanked Ozpin out of harm's way, tanking the blast meant for him. His back burned and begged for rest, for time to heal, but he had no time to give. What did it matter? Pain was an old friend. He pressed on. Willow! He cupped his hands and called into the chaos. Cinder! His voice rang hollow over the crackling flames. Where are you? He felt another shadow clone pop in the blaze, succumbing to the heat and smoke. Smoke that even now filled his lungs, turning his powerful voice to an angry rasp. Blue eyes narrowed to angry slits and he ripped away his right sleeve, using it as a crude cloth to cover his mouth. Then he lurched back into the blaze and thrashed his way forward into the inferno. Too much fire. He needed water. Ice or something? Wind would be of no help here. It would only feed the flames. Ears ringing, eyes stinging, lungs burning, still he searched for survivors. Time and time again he stretched out his senses, trying to find them, only to drown in a sea of emotions. Too much pain. It was everywhere, negative emotions cloying the air like a fog, muddling senses that should have been sharp and clear. Too much fear, anger, negativity everywhere, everyone, everything. It choked him, dampening his senses when he needed them most. Negative emotion sensing was less than useless here, clogged by ash and fire and the cries of the injured and the dying. A little fire won't kill those two. Kurama interjected, ever the voice of reason. Calm down. Easy for him to say. Panic bleated through his mind, blotting all else out, turning his thoughts a red slurry of fear. Stupid, stupid, stupid! He dodged a bit of debris as they tumbled from the ceiling and ran on. What was I thinking? He'd seen Jacques here, but thought Willow could handle him. Arrogance. One must never turn their back on an enemy. That cheeky girl had every reason to hate them. Yet with so many allies, he would have been a fool to try something. It just made sense, you know? You didn't attack where your enemies were strongest. No one expected that. It just wasn't done. It made the bombing all the more devastating. They'd been able to save some to be sure, but more had perished in the initial explosion. Dozens lay dead. He could heal many a person, but death? That was final. Another blast rocked the hotel from above. This one proved the most devastating yet. High above them, the roof sagged with an ominous groan. Naruto paid it no mind. He was already moving on. The ceiling would hold. It had to. They were still evacuating people. If it came down now, well, best not to think of that. It would. Hold. And if it doesn't? We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Teary eyes glimpsed a hunched shape in the smoke, and he stormed toward it, only to find Ozpin hunched over a prone form. He turned up at his approach, revealing a dirty face streaked by soot and fire alike. Poor bastard looked just as bad as he felt. Did you find them? I have not, he said. What of the survivors? I've gotten as many people out as I can find. Who's that? He soon answered his own question, for after a moment he recognized them. Crow? The poor man was even worse for wear. He'd taken a nasty head wound and his right arm was dangling in such a way that suggested his poor shoulder had been dislocated, if not outright broken. Bleary eyes turned up to regard him. Not all there. I tried to stop him. Naruto's blood turned to ice. Stop who? I must ask you to remain calm. Ozpin temporized with a raised hand. We have reason to believe Willow has been taken. Crow can tell you more. He tried to intervene. The ice melted and became raging flame, boiling through Naruto's veins. When Crow didn't answer, he leaned in and touched his marked palm to the man's forehead. A quick pulse of chakra set him to rights and mended his wounds. Big bastard, he groaned. Saw him grab your wife in the chaos. Even now he had half a mind to argue. She's not my... Might as well be after that display. Crow waved him down with an angry rasp. Anyway, I saw the prick. He had her slung over his shoulder like a sack of flour. He tried to stand only for his knee to buckle. Tried to take her back, but there was some slimy little prick in a suit with him. He just looked at me and my body locked up. Then the big guy slugged me. A grimace tore across his dirty face. They had a message for you. Tell me. Crow swallowed once. If you want her, you know what you must do. Forsake the Schnee name. A muscle jumped in Naruto's jaw. Jacques. His right eye began to twitch. Crow was talking about Jacques. No one else would say that. All this death, all this destruction for that? The fire in his veins had become molten magma now, searing his thoughts to a fever pitch. This mustn't register on an emotional level. Calm. He had to stay calm. The enemy wanted to make him angry, wanted him to lash out. make mistakes. This didn't bother him. No, it didn't bother him. It bothered him a lot. With a treacherous creak of sundered timber, the roof finally gave way above them. Blue Eyes snapped up. His body blazed gold. Brute force it was. Kurama! 2 hands snapped up, metal and flesh alike. 9 giant tails burst from his back as a towering form coalesced around him, taking on the shape and form of his old friend. Stern shoulders slammed up and braced against the crumbling woodwork, holding it fast. Mighty knees tensed beneath the weight, forcing him to steady himself. The impact kicked up a gale, briefly banishing the smoke. And in that moment, a single sliver of a second, a brief blink of time, he saw them. 2 tiny bodies trapped under a mound of burning debris. Neither moved. He couldn't reach them like this. Then again, he didn't have to, for he wasn't alone. Ozpin! The headmaster jumped just a little as he roared out his name. I see them. There! He jerked his head in the direction of the already swelling smoke. Get the kids out of here, now! Then he braced himself against the ceiling and pushed. 0.0, 0.0. She couldn't move. Somehow that alone frightened Cinder more than the fire and ash falling around her. More than the pain, more than her trapped legs, more than anything else. Strange, wasn't it? She'd never been one to fear flame. The heat never bothered her anyway. And yet the prospect of being trapped in any way, shape or form, why, it terrified her. Turned her legs to jelly, even if she couldn't currently feel them. Her mind gibbered a little when she tried to move her calves and failed. No, don't think about that. Ignore it. Suppress it. Don't think about it. Everything was blurry, muted, distant, as if she were living in a dream. Only the pain told otherwise. Cinder Schnee was no stranger to pain. She'd lived with it for as long as she could remember. Yet this was agony unlike any other. Everything try as she might, she couldn't get away from it. She struggled in the wreckage, trembling hands fumbling with the smouldering wooden beams, pinning her to the ruined floor. Burning pain lanced through her side. She looked down and saw blood against her side, a deep scarlet stain spreading across her dress, rising from her ribs. She tried to scream. Her voice failed her. Sienna whimpered somewhere beside her, barely visible through the haze of smoke. It hurts. With a supreme effort of will unlike any other, Cinder propped herself up on her elbows and reached for her weapons. Her hands met to empty air, unable to find the sheaths that had been bound to her belt. They were gone, lost in the chaos. Even if she had them, she wouldn't be able to cut through wood this thick. She simply didn't have the upper body strength required to make such a grievous cut. High above her, she heard the ceiling loose, an ominous creak. Where was everyone? Had they abandoned them? Were they going to die here? Kurama! A thunderous shout split the gloom, banishing the smoke for a moment. Cinder looked up with wide golden eyes, balked as a giant golden fox burst through the smoke and slammed upward, impossibly large, and yet so much more than that. She saw the man standing in its great gilded skull, and her heart soared. Father raised his arms and shouldered the ceiling, take the weight of the world on his back. She dared a pained smile at the sight of her protector. It said something to her, but the ringing in her ears returned, momentarily deafening her to all else. Hold on! A familiar voice broke through the haze not a moment later. I have you! A firm hand swept down and shattered the heavy oak, entrapping her like brittle glass. It didn't fly. It flew across the room. Bleary eyes blinked up at her saviour. Mom? For a wild moment, Cinder thought it might be Willow, but no. Although their hair was indeed pale, everything else was wrong. Willow didn't wear black and green. Willow didn't carry a cane. No. Headmaster Ozpin swept down, missing his spectacles and somehow looking all the more stern for it. He saw her legs and winced but a little. Then he did something with a glowing green hand, something that simply lifted the last of the debris off her and Sienna alike. The moment he did, Cinder felt her legs again. She soon wished she couldn't. Agony. Her world went black for a moment. When she came to, she found herself tucked into the headmaster's chest. Quite suddenly she realized the fire and the flames were gone, replaced by cool night air. It felt heavenly upon her burnt skin. Through bleary eyes she beheld Raven holding a battered Sienna as an anxious summer fussed over them both. Each looked like they'd taken their fair share of hits in the blast. At least they were all right, though it looked like Sienna had taken a bad cut to her arm. Wait, why was everything still blurry? Why couldn't she see properly? She tried to speak, but her lungs, damaged by so much smoke, betrayed her. All that emerged was a low rasp. Ah? Ozpin pulled her just a bit closer, doing his best not to meet her eyes. "You're going to be all right now." Was she? Cinder tried to look down at herself, saw the burns. Something in her recoiled. "No, don't look. Suppress it." Desperate to avert her gaze and avoid what was already proving to be a traumatic experience, Cinder turned her eyes to the skies instead and sought solace there. As such, she saw the moment it appeared. A giant golden fox burst through the wreckage of the glass unicorn, snarling furiously at the moon. More than a few men and women shrieked at the sight. Survivors shrank back with frightful cries, no doubt thinking their doom had come upon them. But it never did. Instead, they were left to gasp as it shrank back into the shape of a man. Said man alighted upon the ground in a pointed crouch, but he didn't stop glowing, not for a moment. All black and gold with frightful red eyes, he looked like some great gilded god, his once gentle azure eyes now burning a molten shade of scarlet. Somehow, across the distance, Father saw his daughter. Naruto took one look at Cinder and moved. Ozpin jolted back, startled as he all but ripped her from his arms. The sudden motion left the young girl whimpering. Not in fear, but in pain. "I've got you." Rather than spout false assurances, Naruto simply acted like the good father he was. He knelt, lowered her to the floor, and pressed that marked hand of his to her forehead. Divine chakra flashed out. Cinder hissed as she felt the bones in her legs shift and snap. Burnt flesh became healthy pink skin. The abominable ache in her lungs abated. Her vision cleared. It was a horrible process for Cinder, one that felt like an age, when in truth it took only a few minutes. To her, it may as well have been an eternity. "Finally, finally!" He pulled back and helped her rise once more. Thank you." She clutched at his hand. "You're all right?" Her small hand squeezed his. He hauled her into a firm embrace. No more words were needed. "Remarkable." Ozpin breathed the word with awe. "I didn't think she would last the night, and yet you healed her." Naruto leaned back and threw a less than pleasant remark his way. Cinder took the chance to wriggle free and sit up fully. Only then did she see the flames. For the rest of Atlas was burning. Not all of it, but there enough buildings aflame to raise the alarm all the same. The glass unicorn, good riddance to bad rubbish, wasn't the only victim tonight. They'd merely been the opening salvo in an attack that no one knew was coming. There would be many a fire to put out come morning. Not even the academy had been spared. She vaguely saw the general looking that way with a thunderous expression. High above them, a Nevermore shrieked. "Oh, come on." Summer straightened with a sigh and reached for her weapon. "This is going to draw Grim by the droves!" "Perhaps so." Ozpin remained unruffled. But that's what we have you lot for, is it not? Remember, we prepared for just such a scenario." Naruto's expression turned thunderous. "Wanna run that by me again?" "Rest assured," the headmaster soothed him before suspicion could rear its ugly head. "You weren't bait. We simply thought it wise to be prepared given our enemy's interest in you." "Miss Branwen?" Raven rolled her eyes, but nevertheless tore Omen free from its sheath. A quick flick of her wrist ripped a portal into the air. At first, Cinder thought it pointless. Who was she creating a portal to? What purpose could it possibly serve? She didn't think Willow and Raven were bonded well enough to give her a direct line to the latter. Convenient as it would have been, it just wasn't possible. So why make a portal at all then? If she could not use it to rescue anyone, then what was the point? Ozpin straightened a little and spoke into that grisly red tear. "Glinda!" "It's time." Cinder soon had her answer. As one, the hunters and huntresses of Beacon poured through the breach. So many. Too many to count. First, she spied a strange man with wild green hair and spectacles. Another with a great big belly and a battle axe fused to a blunderbuss. Behind them came a striking young woman in violet and black, her green eyes cold like frozen emeralds. Just looking at her sent a chill down her spine. Yet more was still emerging when Raven rounded on Naruto. "Well, why are you standing there gawping? Get going." "Excuse me." The blonde scowled at her. "You're a warrior, Naruto." Raven stomped a boot and tossed her hair to one side. "Stop moping around and act like one." "They took Willow." Her eyes locked on him, wild and angry. "What are you going to do about it?" His face settled into a scowl. "Summer." "Yep." The silver-eyed warrior smacked her lips. "You need something?" "Look after Cinder for me." "Sure thing." Much to the girl's chagrin, she found herself drawn into the huntress's arms. You can count on me, Tild. Naruto barely seemed to hear her. Ironwood. The captain jumped a bit when the whiskered warrior uttered his name. Earlier you asked what I was capable of. James frowned but a little. Yes. Naruto's grin was just the wrong shade of vicious. Watch closely now. Then he crossed his fingers and the world boiled with smoke, followed by a sea of gold. He gave them their orders, uncaring as civilians and hunters alike, balked at him. They, the horde now assembled before them, gave a smart salute and obeyed those commands with hesitation. As one mind, one body they turned. Through the streets of Atlas, an army of shadow clones sallied forth. Some leaped down into Mantle. Others took to the rooftops, while still others drew weapons and waded into the city proper. Cinder smiled all the while, preening in the attention they received. She never got tired of surprises like this. Best dad ever. 0.0, 0.0. Nicholas had made a bit of a blunder. Perhaps it was arrogant of him to believe he could fight alone for so long. More so for him to send Naruto's clones away at the beginning of all this. No, it certainly was. He had something to prove, something to do, and he knew he'd not be able to do so with that young man, God's bless his simple soul, watching his every move. He knew all too well Naruto's penchant for mercy. When faced with Marcus, he might have hesitated, might have been swayed and offered him a hand of friendship instead. Nicholas Schnee felt no such hesitation these days, only the bitter regret of his past mistakes. He understood what needed to be done. He would not hesitate. He would show no mercy. Marcus Black could not and would not be redeemed. He was too far gone, too corrupted by his mother's influence and a lifetime of pain. Sometimes you just needed to put dogs down, and at the end of the day, his dim-witted son was just that, an angry stray biting out at all who had hurt him. That stray struck at him now, driving a metal-shod boot at his face. Amateur. It was the work of but a moment to step aside and let Cleave, his trusty greatsword, do its bloody work. Its wicked edge sliced through aura and flesh, carving through bone. Marcus tumbled away, clutching at the ruined stump of his knee with a yowl. Surely he was running low on aura. He couldn't use that many semblances without wearing himself out. Regenerating limbs had to be a costly endeavour. It was merely a matter of pushing him to his breaking point. I am sorry for this. He raised his weapon high as his son tried to crawl away. I'll try to make this painless. A patch of gloom shifted behind him. Blasted interloper again! Would she never learn? Nicholas pivoted, evading a strike that should have taken his hat. His attacker barely managed to graze before he whirled with a snarl, bringing his sword to bear. Daggers scraped across his blade, drawing a score of sparks. Rather than retreat like any sane, sensible soldier in the face of an ambush, Nicholas braved his blade with both hands to force her back, then down as he exerted his mighty strength against her paltry weapons. Cleave bit into her nameless daggers, fracturing them, forcing the woman to cross her smaller blades lest she lose them entirely. You fight well. He considered her over their interlocked weapons. Who are you? Who taught you? Ch! Behind her mask, the young woman clicked her tongue in mild irritation. It was the only warning he received before she dropped her daggers to drive said mask into his nose. Blood ran down his bear. He rode the blow, then swept his blade forward in a sweeping arc of silver to strike her bony white facade. She recoiled with an angry yowl, and he took the chance to ram an armoured shoe into her ribs, flinging her away with an audible crack. Not so eager to lose that mask, are we? Nicholas brandished his blade over one arm. I wonder who I'll find underneath. A lone golden eye regarded him through the crack of porcelain as she clambered to her feet. A gloved hand drew a fresh pair of daggers from her bandolier of knives. A frozen beowulf pounced on her from behind, and she drove one of her blades into its eye without even looking back. His summons crumpled into harmless ice at her feet. My identity doesn't matter. Your death does. I'm afraid I must disagree, my dear. With a gregarious laugh, he surged in and drove the masked assassin back a step. Her daggers skittered harmlessly off his blade, then another. Another now. Another still. Still she fought on, willingly giving ground. It wasn't hard to guess her intentions. She was trying to draw his focus away from Marcus. Give him time to heal and rejoin the fight. Pity it wouldn't work. Beneath his feet, a new glyph flared to life, powered by lightning dust. Whomever this masked woman was, she fought with cold speed and grace. Even in the face of his enhancer's speed, she didn't give up. She did not cry out when he wounded her, nor did she give herself away when she attacked. but she bled like anyone else and didn't heal when he cut her. That meant she could be beaten. For a moment he'd feared she might be that thing. But no, this woman appeared mortal as any other. Damnably hard to kill, perhaps, but mortal all the same. A fully healed Marcus lunged at his exposed flank. Nicholas didn't even deign to look his way. Fool of a boy. When will you learn? Yet another glyph howled to life beneath his progeny and slammed him into the floor. No sooner had he landed than a pack of frozen Ursa fell upon him, their icy claws and mighty limbs forcing the assassin to fend for his life once more. Yet again the masked woman was denied her reinforcements. Useless assassin, she growled. He's not worth what we're paying him. His blade swept through her body and she swayed away, giving ground rather than risk another frontal clash. Stars burst before his vision and a dagger took him in the thigh, but he soldiered on to ram the hilt of his blade into her face. Another crack crawled across her hardened visor. She snarled and fell upon in a storm of shadow to no avail. He had the measure of her now. Without Marcus and the element of surprise, she was but a lone assassin, a single enemy, and he'd slain more of those than he could count. Eventually she slipped, stuck just a little too high. Nicholas struck low, forced her guard higher still, and finished it. You're alone now. He stepped in, swept her legs, and rammed her to the floor. Enough! Cleave came up under her chin, forcing that masked facade to lift or have its throat torn out. Give up. No one's going to save you. He wasn't prepared for her laughter. Who said I was alone? He couldn't see her face behind that mantle, but her tone lent the impression of a smile. My work is already done. You're just a bonus. Behind him, the main doors opened. Nicholas knew better than to turn, but his body betrayed him all the same. Freya limped through, clutching at a horrid red tear in her dress. As he looked on, she leaned against the wall, leaving a red stain behind as she dragged herself forward. She didn't make it far. Even as he realized she was real, the Winter Maiden fell to her knees. She did not rise from them. Nicky, dear. She looked up, granting him a ghostly smile. I think we have a bit of a problem. His world ground to a halt. Freya? Still alive, is she? Still at the tip of his blade, the masked woman nevertheless clicked her tongue in mild admonishment. You old fools just can't lay down and die, can you? Nicholas rounded on her and cuffed her across the face. Her mask held. Even as he reached down and grabbed her by the throat, it still held. Just who do you think you are? A hidden dagger slipped from her sleeve. I am your death. Her wrist landed in an open palm. Firm fingers closed around flesh and bone, squeezing until the wicked dagger fell from her grasp. Her visible eye widened within the mask. Still he squeezed, until the nerves of her arm ground together, until her wrist became find powder, until her weapon clattered to the floor. With but a scoff, he flung the assassin over his shoulder into a frozen bauber tusk. The mighty beast gored her on its horns and flung her down the hall. Nicholas didn't bother to check on her. A wound like that would keep her down, if not finish her outright. He turned just in time to find Freya brandishing a knife of her own. Silverware, really? Little more than the kind you'd find in a kitchen drawer. Did she intend to fight? With that little thing? She held it in a strange reverse grip, baffling him further. She stumbled forward a bit, tried to stand. Failed. Freya, he stumbled toward her. What are you doing? His old friend granted him a small, sad smile. Something that should have been done a long time ago. If they want my power this badly. Too late, he glimpsed the dagger in her hand. Then this old woman will deny them. Blue eyes widened. No! Even as he reached for her, the knife came down with sound and aplomb. It sank deep into her chest with a horrible squelch of sound. Red bloomed across her chemise, staining her nightgown scarlet. She tottered on her feet, swaying as a lost ship would at sea. When she fell, Nicholas dove to catch her, to no avail. Even as he caught her, he recognized the mortal wound. Already he could see the blood pooling beneath her, soaking through her white shift. I'm sorry, my dear. Hazy eyes regarded him. Tell her I'm sorry. A trembling hand rose to cup his cheek. This the only way I could think to help you. My power will go to someone better, someone stronger. She slumped over with a lifeless sigh, and a pale blue light burst from her corpse. For a fleeting moment it almost seemed to hover there, as though unable to decide where it wanted to go. Then, in a blink, it arrowed out to the east, struck a window, and vanished in a spray of broken glass. Marcus snarled and reached for it. No! Nicholas hacked the hand off at the wrist. The young man recoiled with a shriek of pain. Damn you! He didn't have time to utter anything more. High above them, the ceiling shook. Once, twice, thrice. Nicholas looked up with a rueful smile. Impeccable timing as always. Not a heartbeat later, a streak of golden light came crashing down from the second floor. He knew at once it was a shadow clone, if only for the look of utter rage written upon its whiskered visage. Seemed one of the boys hadn't listened after all. It looked absolutely furious. That fury only escalated when it saw Freya's still form. Assumptions were made, even if they weren't the correct ones. Marcus! Shit! The assassin swore. Time to go. Beside him, the woman hesitated. Not without his head. Lady, we don't have time for your bloody vendetta. We can kill him later. A fist caught his face and smashed him down into the floor. Nicholas flung up an arm as dirt and debris sprayed out in every direction, nearly blinding him to what came next. Nevertheless, he still bounded forward to engage the masked woman as she sought to strike at the clone's exposed flank. Steel struck steel as he warded her back with a sweeping strike, forcing her back one pace, then two, three now. Wretched man! Here at last, she snarled at him, her composure finally fracturing. Why won't you just die? No. He turned his head aside and spat blood. The only death tonight will be yours. As such, he found himself with a prime view of what came next. Marcus yelped. Hey, a little help here, Ak? No, no, no. Behind him, the shadow clone grabbed a stunned Marcus by the skull and slammed him into the floor. Over and over again. You don't get to teleport. Not this time. He beat him down like a man possessed, ruining the man's once handsome face into a grisly caricature of its former self. You're not going anywhere. Beneath them, wood and stone gave way with an awful groan. Nicholas looked down uneasily, knowing full well that the foundations simply couldn't take such abuse. Sure enough, final slam sent one unfortunate Marcus Black and the rest of them, hurtling into the cellar below. 0.0, 0.0. He could sense her now. Away from all that negativity, all that pain, he could feel her. She was so far away, but he saw her in his mind's eyes. Not far. Not for him. Grim barred his path, and he had a moment to wonder why the shields were down. Then he stopped caring. Get out of my way! Naruto ripped and tore, until it was done. 0.0, 0.0, 0.0, 0.0. Wake her. We have to hurry. He'll be here any moment. I know, you fool. Don't rush me. Willow woke with a wince to those voices. It was not a slow awakening by any means. One moment, she'd been sleeping soundly. The next, she was wide awake, nursing an abominable headache. She tried to move only to find her hands bound behind her back, held by heavy chain to an equally metal chair. Her feet were likewise entrapped, held by wicked-looking manacles. She cast a fretful glance down, only to find her weapon gone, and her vials of dust with it. Confusion crept through her soul. What? All at once, mind jolted back, recalling what had transpired in all its ugly glory. Jacques, the bombing. So much fire, so much death. Her head snapped up. The room itself was little more than stone and clay, likely a cellar of some sort. 4 bare walls, a floor and a ceiling, with only a simple oak table between her and a reinforced door. A simple oil lamp burned overhead, hung from a rusty hook. Was it just her imagination, or was there dried blood on... Without word or warning, the door crashed open. Light rushed in, blinding her. She turned away from it with a hiss. Hello, my dear. She heard Jacques coming long before she saw him. He'd always been the type to gloat. Knowing didn't help her aim much. Still, she gave it a good shot. The moment Willow saw him, the second his oily forehead touched hers, she reared back and spat in his face. How rude! He dabbed her this face with a handkerchief. I'm afraid we won't have as much time together as I would have liked. He didn't bother to sit, but instead crossed the table. We'll have to make this quick, my dear. She tore her chin from his grasp. You won't get away with this. Still you defy me. What does that fool have that I do not? She sneered. He's a man, for one. He bridled. But there are no men like me. Willow scowled. There will always be men like you. Enough of this prattle. Resistance is futile. Jacques leaned back, took a seat behind his table, and laid both hands atop it. My semblance is invincible. Now, you will comply, or you will be made to. Willow grit her teeth. I will not. You will. The businessman remained serene in his confidence. Refuse, and I will kill your father." She winced and his smile grew. "Then that wretch you call a daughter." A snarl tore out of her, yet he only smiled. "Maybe even that Faunus brat. Everyone and everything you love will die. Because of your selfish defiance." "Monster!" She surged upright, only for the chains to hold her back. "Am I? I'm only the monster you made me." His moustache twisted in thinly veiled agitation. "This all would have been so much easier if you just obeyed." Something slimy brushed against Willow's mind, like fingers of oil threading through a pool of clear water. A foul presence stabbed down into her mind, her very soul, and latched on with dark fingers. She clenched her jaw and grit her teeth against it, snapping her head to one side. Still it crept in, tainting her every thought. "No," she growled the word. "I won't submit." Jacques merely smiled. "You have no say in the matter." "Yes, I do." She grit her teeth as a migraine came on. "I refuse." "Piss off!" Such a foul mouth. His hand cracked across her face, bringing with an icy flare of pain. "It seems he's corrupted you more than I thought. I'll have to erase those awful memories." Her soul stilled. He was bluffing, surely. There was no such semblance that allowed a man to do so much. Mental domination was one thing, yet to inflict pain and debilitating exhaustion with but a word, that was something else. No, this had to be something more. It had to be. This couldn't be magic. Magic wasn't real, right? Jacques spoke again, bringing yet more pain. "You are mine." "Obi, forget him." She was not his. She would never be his. So she swore. And yet, inch by inch, she felt her sense of self being eroded under the weight of his words. This was black magic, warped by a semblance so foul she didn't even understand it. But she didn't have to understand something to hate it. He was trying to change her, alter her, mold her into what he thought she should be. She fought back with all her might, rallied her willpower to push him away time and again. With each wave, the pain grew worse. She cried out in anger as he struck her. Resisting brought only more pain. She felt her resistance crack. Then it happened. A ray of light found her in the dark, a sharp and sudden fire in her very soul. It burned away the foul miasma wrapping around her psyche. "Rise, my child," an oddly familiar voice intoned. "For you have been chosen." Something sang in Willow's veins, a pure and holy power that burned all her pain and fatigue away. No, it didn't burn. It was cold. It froze them, like a great cleansing blizzard sweeping all before it. Her head snapped up. Frost crept across the chains that bound her. Unable to compromise with the fresh forces pushing against them, those heavy iron links shattered under the frigid temperature. Shrapnel sprayed in every direction. Some of it struck Jacques through his aura, ripping a bloody furrow through his suit. He recoiled with a pained shriek, his concentration all but annihilated. "What is this?" Willow spread her arms and let the cold winds bring her aloft. She gave herself to it gladly, let it direct her body like a puppet. Instincts not her own took hold and guided her through the steps. Voices of generations past whispered in her ear, babbling happily as she joined their ranks. She welcomed them with open arms, and they did the same to her. This power was amazing. It went beyond aura and her semblance, wrapping around her soul in a protective cocoon of azure light to shroud it in strength. She felt alive in a way she had never been before. The very earth beneath her feet stirred, ready to do her will. Wind whipped into the air to lash at her hair, creating a pale hail across her face. Sparks skittered at her fingertips, ready to be unleashed at a moment's notice. And fire. So much fire. It burned in her veins like lava, demanding to be released. She felt like a god. Was this what Naruto dealt with on a daily basis? Always being careful. Always moving so slowly. Always making sure not to break something. Or someone. So much power. Oh, gods. A girl could get drunk on this. Perhaps she already was. That might be her concussion talking. She didn't know what this power was, where it came from, anything. Only that it had come to her here and now, in her moment of need. There would be time for questions later. For now, nothing else mattered, even if it burned so very badly. No! She had to keep it controlled, lest it consume her. "You dare defy me!" A stray shot pinged off her restored aura, drawing a flinch from the heiress. Her ironclad control slipped. Burning blue eyes narrowed upon the culprit, watching intently as Jacques reloaded an antique-looking dust pistol. He looked rather put out. So sad. Too bad. Her damaged mind found humour in his plight. Perhaps that was vicious of her. Perhaps that made her cruel. But he had been cruel unto her, had he not? Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, evil for evil. So went the saying. And so she spoke. I will always, always, always defy you. Hate reared its ugly head in Willow's heart and became spite. He looked so small from down here, so meaningless. There was nothing more she wanted from him. Not his pain, not his suffering, not even an apology. None of those mattered anymore. Only his death. For the indignity he'd inflicted upon her, she would grind him down into paste. I am your master. Heedless of his peril, ranted at her, frothing at the moth. Your king, for all that it matters. You will do as I say. Willow tilted her head, regarding him with thinly veiled intent and scorn alike. What is a king to a god? His face turned an alarming shade of puce. What is a god to a non-believer? She scoffed. Still a god. Hazel lunged at her when she wasn't looking. Willow didn't even deign to face him. Even as his arms closed around her, she simply exhaled and let all her new power flow free as it wished. Fire flashed, blasting him away from her with impossible force. Even as he fell, her hand swept upward, bringing with it a rush of hail and ice. Flesh was no match for such an element, least of all a man so large. His bulk made for an easy target. Hazel crashed to the ground, frozen solid just below the chin. Wide, fearful eyes regarded her. Stay. Willow smiled at him. It was not a pleasant smile. Good boy. Then she burst forward and rammed into Jacques. Credit where it was due, he did defend himself. For all the good it did him. She batted his weapon aside with but a flick of the wrist, ignored his pistol as it barked against her ribs, grabbed him by the face and wrenched him into the floor. It burst at her touch, cratering outward for miles in every direction. Do you believe now? Something spoke through her, the voice of generations past. He glared up at her. You don't frighten me. Little Jacques, what did you just say to me? I'm sorry, did you not hear me the first time? Willow cocked her head, looking down upon him. Shall I use different words for your little brain? She pushed closer still and cupped his chin, gripping it tight in her hand until she felt the bones creak audibly beneath. Little man. Blazing blue eyes bored into his, wild with hate and flame. Little parasite. Little worthless worm who delights in making noise and pretending he is important. That is all you are. All you have been. All you ever will be. He opened his mouth to retort and she struck him, raking her long nails across his face. A cry of pain split the air. Are you going to continue provoking me, little Jacques? Another swipe ripped through his lip, leaving it hanging in a grisly sneer. Are you going to fight me, little Jacques? It was too much for his ego, of course. He snapped. Pain! Jacques all but spat the word up at her, throwing the full weight of his semblance behind it. Pain, pain, pain! Bow to me! Submit! Willow grit her teeth and braced herself. Somehow that helped. It let the command wash over her like so much water, leaving her unaffected. His voice lashed at her like a whip. She gave him a shove and he crashed into a nearby wall. She, however, stood tall. The wind took her and held her aloft again as her arms rose at her sides. I bowed to no one. Her fist flew out and an arc of pale blue fire followed. It struck straight and true, latching onto Jacques and his hateful face. He toppled back, shrieking as the left side caught flame. His body crashed to the floor, writhing in wretched agony as he clutched at his ruined visage. Damn you! His good eye glared up at her, wide and hateful. What have you done to me? Something that should have been done a long time ago. Her hand swept up and the world bent to her will. The rickety rook above began to creak, unable to resist the wind tugging at it, much less Willow's command. Metal ripped itself free from its moorings. Steel and concrete came untethered, rising around her in a maelstrom of death. Still she wrapped it tighter, threading the wind with every element she could muster. All around her, the very foundations of the building creaked. Still she took it apart, rending it away at the seams. Goodbye, Jacques. I'd say it was nice knowing you. Her lips quirked into a scowl. But we both know that's a lie. Now kindly die. In his final moments, the disgraced noble still had the audacity to scream at her. Willow! Then the roof fell on his head, bringing the rest of the building crashing down. 0.0, 0.0. Naruto found Willow walking out a burning warehouse. He knew at once that something was amiss, if only because of her glowing eyes. His marked hand trembled, rejoicing at something he didn't understand. All is as it should be, as it must be. Steeling himself against it, he gripped his wrist and stormed forward. Only then did he truly see what she had behind her back. It wasn't hard to miss. She dragged a frozen caricature of a man behind her like some grisly trophy. Poor bastard was still alive too, for the ice left his head unharmed. But Willow, oh dear, that was a lot of blood. He hoped it wasn't hers. Willow? He all but bolted to her side. You're all right. How did you get away? Hello, dear. She smiled up at him like a blood-soaked princess. Did you miss me? Something about the way she said those words worried him, as if she weren't quite there. Well, of course I was worried. He took her hands in his. Never mind that. Where's Jacques? Is he in there? Yep. She swayed a little on her feet, reminding him of a drunkard at last call. I killed him, burned most of his face off and dropped a building on him. A tipsy hand indicated the burning yet frozen ruin behind her. I think his body is in there, somewhere. He screamed a lot by the end. Something was certainly wrong here. Are you all right? I don't think so, no. The heiress stumbled a bit. I think I have a concussion, which sounds silly, because he only hit my head a few times. Rage sparked back to life in him. Yeah, definitely a concussion. And she'd won despite that? Oh! Her bleary eyes lit up in a startling moment of lucidity. I took a prisoner. She swung a bloody hand back to indicate the scowling man trapped in ice. This is Hazel. He helped kidnap me. Say hello, Hazel. The giant growled. I'll never talk. Willow laughed. It was a sharp, frantic sound born from too much stress. You just did. Don't mind him, Willow whispered into her hand. He's shy, also. A brief blink followed. I think I need a drink. Or several, probably. Naruto couldn't help himself. He threw his head back and laughed. Where did that come from? Where do you think? She gazed up at him with half-lidded eyes, her irises still trailing blue flame. I was just kidnapped, tortured, and nearly mind-raped to death. I want to pretend this night never happened. No. Her hands tightened on the lapels of his jacket. I want to bury it in a good memory. So, she leaned up and kissed his cheek. You, me, alcohol. Now. Fair enough. His hands settled on her waist. But later, you need medical attention. To hell with the hospital. She headbutted his chest. Get me a damn drink. Yup, there was the Willow he knew. He chortled softly. Sure thing. Willow made a pleased sound and nuzzled his chest. Jacques could go hang for all they cared. Everything was all right now, wasn't it? Chapter 14. Some people say life is precious, like a rose. It is something to be preserved, to be protected. But you've changed things. So many things. There's no going back now. See, to them. You're just a freak, like me. Tilda the future. Become the beast. Marcus Black had always feared the dark. Ever since he was but a boy, he held a deep and primordial fear of the shadows. It wasn't the gloom that terrified him per se, it was what might lie within. Monsters lurked in the dark. Not just grim, but his every doubt, his every fear made manifest. Fear that he wouldn't be good enough. Fear that he wouldn't make Mother proud. Fear that he would die as he had lived. Nothing. Nobody. No one. It was here in the dark that he was at his weakest. He should have been a Schnee. Instead, by an accident of birth, he became a Black. He was meant to be someone, but he was cast out, forgotten, disgraced, all because of his mother and her wretched schemes. He, who had been born with the most powerful semblance in the world, was forced to bow and scrape and serve. Well, no more. He had plans, big plans. But now, much like the floor of the Schnee estate, those plans crumbled. Marcus, a golden hand closed around his face and smashed him down through the floor, sending him spiraling into the darkness. He flailed at his attack as he fell into the murk, howling his fury. Rubble came tumbling down atop them as they fell, forcing the two warriors apart lest they both be crushed. He spat at the shadow clone as it vanished somewhere among the falling debris, then pivoted to face the cold stone below. By some miracle, he managed to get his feet out under him in time, but only just. Oomph! Pain shot through his legs as the impact jarred his knees, sending shivers of impact racing down his spine. He straightened immediately and flung himself away into the dark, fearing a counterattack that never came. Bits of broken rock tumbled down to the floor. Nothing more. Nothing came of it. Nothing at all. Damn it all! Everything had gone wrong. Where the hell was that bitch Salem sent? A dull splat answered as a humanoid form crashed to the floor beside him. Nope. Time to get out of here! He stole a glance to the gaping hole above his head. Ought to be easy to get back up there, but did he want to? Better to slip away in the darkness, while he could. He stood with a groan. Ugh! His voice echoed in the empty room. Beneath the Schnee Manor was not a mouldy old basement as he'd suspected, but rather a sprawling expanse of... He didn't know what this was. Coffins? But why would there be coffins down here? What possible purpose could they serve? He ran his hand across one, baffled by it. A thin film of dust came way under his hand. And beneath it, he found an inscription. Here lies Nathaniel Schnee, beloved father and grandfather. And beside it, another. Here lies Winifred Schnee, beloved mother and grandmother. Marcus jerked back, feeling scalded. What was this place? This was no wine cellar. This was something altogether worse. Much worse. His gaze fell upon another row of coffins, then another, followed by yet another, each stretching on into the distance ad infinitum. His gorge rose. This is no cellar. It's a... And something in the darkness answered. A tomb. Like an avenging angel, Nicholas crashed down from on high. Cleave flicked out in a lazy stroke and bit deep into Marcus' collarbone. There was no word of warning, not even a flicker of movement. The Warden of Atlas fell from on high and struck true. Folded steel swept through aura, then skin, followed by bone. An awful crunch filled the basement. If one were to squint, they might see an arm alongside a good bit of black shoulder spin away into the dark. They would certainly hear the scream that followed. Black dropped to his knees with a yowl to clutch at his bloodied side. He couldn't heal from this, not in time. His aura, already low from fighting, was barely enough to stem the bleeding. What have you done? His voice tore through the crypt in a low howl. You've maimed me. These aren't just cellars. He heard the dull thud of his boots as father circled him. They're catacombs. Generations of Schnee are housed in this place. I moved their remains myself. The boots stopped, and that ghastly greatsword filed his vision. My father was buried here, and his father before him. A time-eaten sigh pushed through the air between them. Someday I'll be buried here too. As will my daughter and all those who come after, but not this day. Why are you telling me this? Because when you die, I plan to have you buried here, as a Schnee. It's least I can do to mend my mistakes. Marcus lifted his chin in defiance. You'll die alone, just like them. All of them! No. Nicholas shook his head. Not alone. Do you hear that, my son? Marcus whirled with a hiss. He did hear something in the distance over his own pounding pulse, high above. A low roar like an approaching storm. Marcus! That's the sound of all your plans, all your schemes come crashing down. Nicholas tittered softly. I expected no less of that boy. He truly does amaze me sometimes. Cleave came down and split the floor. This really is your last chance to surrender, son. A gauntlet-clad hand reached out for him. You're beaten. It's useless to resist. Submit, and I'll see that you're treated fairly. Black grit his teeth. How dare he lavish praise upon that oaf? It wasn't fair. The glory should be his. This was his birthright, no one else's. It wasn't fair. Everyone looked down on him. Everyone mocked him. Well, he'd show them. Show them all. Every last one of those them. He'd make them pay. Never again would he kneel. Bloodshot eyes rose. I'd rather drown in my own blood. So be it. Marcus lunged. Nicholas didn't move. Someone moved for him. A streak of gold slammed him aside. Marcus latched on with his semblance regardless, intent on draining them dry. Whoever this interloper was, he wouldn't stop with their semblance. Not this time. He'd take their aura, their life, everything. He'd have their soul. He would feed on their death and grow strong, heal from his wounds and escape this place. I've got you. Your power is mine. Nicholas Schnee didn't answer. He didn't have to. No, it was Naruto Uzumaki who frowned down at him, shining like the sun. So you do. You're going to regret that. A thorn of dread plucked at Black's heart. Not a shadow clone. One of those would have popped immediately. This one stood strong, scowling at him as though he were some naughty child. No, it didn't matter. This was even better. What he'd wanted all along. This man had a power unlike any other. It would be his. He'd take it all. What a fool he was. You idiot! Delirious from all the blood he'd lost, Marcus could only laugh. You should have let the old man die. With your strength, I'll be unstoppable. No, a god. He expected fear, terror, begging at the least, but he received none of those things. You're not a god. Tarn arms spread wide, leaving himself hopelessly open for attack. You're just a vicious little parasite, eaten out with jealousy and envy and longing for the lives of others. He took a step forward, then another. Yet another now. You feed on them. You eat their semblances, their very souls, the memory of love and loss and birth and death and joy and sorrow. I'll feed on you too. Go ahead. Naruto's hand slapped up, gripping his wrist, reeling him in, a fish on the hook. Try to take my chakra. Scarlet streams of light snarled between the two of them. Take my soul, my memories, all that I am. But I hope you've got a big appetite. The ghost of a grin plucked at the corner because I've lived a long life. And I have seen things. Marcus blanched. He was bluffing, surely. I've killed bigger men than you. I'm not afraid. With this power, he would kill countless more. Laughter leaped from his lips as scarlet light crept over Risk's body. Already he felt himself healing, his aura recovering. One of his stolen semblances kicked, regrowing his lost limb. He used it to latch on tighter, denying his prey any chance he might have had to flee. You should be. Naruto staggered but a little as crimson chakra continued to bleed forth from his chest. I walked away from the last great shinobi war. He grit his teeth as wild bloody red veins scrawled across his face. I survived when so many perished. I will keep surviving, if only because I can't bear to see their faces again. Wait, something was wrong. This power, it burned. You think you know what death is, Marcus. You don't. His prey pivoted now, clamping down on both shoulders to deny him any hope of escape. But I do. I've seen it. More times than you can count. Marcus pulled harder with his semblance, to no avail. I watched a demon tear his enemies apart with nothing but a knife in his teeth. What madness was this? How was he alive? He should be dead by now. Why wasn't he dead? I stood by as my teacher walked to his doom, never knowing I'd not see him again. Never get to say goodbye. This went beyond mere resistance, more than simply stubbornness. What was this? Why couldn't he control this power? It was his now. I held a good man in my arms and listened as he choked out his last breath as he faded away moment by moment until nothing remained of them. No life, no soul, just death. Something was actively pushing back against him, eating away at him, corroding his very soul. I fought a woman who could not die and lived to tell the tale. Naruto thundered at him, eyes aglow in the gloom. I have seen things you wouldn't believe. His forehead slammed against his. I have lost things you will never understand. Marcus tried to speak, tried to denounce him. His swollen tongue failed him. And I know things. Still his adversary's voice roared in his ears, a terrible snarl that drowned out the very world itself. Terrible things, secrets that must never be told, knowledge that must never be spoken. Knowledge that makes little parasites like you burn, all the world scorched red. A coruscating crimson pillar burning up into the clouds to strike at the sky itself. You think you know what chakra is? You think you can just take it? No. Too late now, Marcus realized his mistake. The blonde had let himself be caught, allowed himself to be drained because he knew what would happen. This was a power unique to him, a gift that couldn't be controlled by anyone else. And in trying to wrest it away for himself, he'd spelled his doom. His every vein was afire now. Yet still the power came. It was a flood of fire, boiling his flesh, blistering his skin. He couldn't stop, couldn't cut the connection. Something held it wide open. Chakra came crashing through his veins, through a body not equipped to handle it. Memories burned into his head, memories that weren't his own. He felt his very personality being overwritten. So come on then. The Jinchuriki howled. Take it if you think you're man enough. Have it. Cracks scrawled across the assassin's skin, fiery red fractures etching toward his face. Too much. He couldn't think, couldn't breathe. It hurt! Make it stop! He could feel his body breaking, melting, being forged into something else. It felt like dying and being reborn anew. He was becoming something else. Someone. Death would claim him first. Even as he tried to push the power back out, he couldn't. He lacked the chakra coils to command the divine energies now coursing through him. And so they continued to build and build. Then build some more. Red light bled through his skin, burst through bones, shattered his legs completely. He slumped and tried to let go, but Naruto clung to him still. Here at last, poor Marcus Black begged for mercy. No more! Stop! Naruto roared over his panicked cries. You have it all! 0.0. Willow heard the explosion long before she saw the fire. It began as a low tremor that rattled the manor grounds beneath her feet like an earthquake, rattling her teeth. She had all of an instant to look down before the trembling ceased. As quickly as it began, the world fell well and truly silent. A small frown plucked at the corner of her mouth. She craned her neck and looked back to the manor, now eerily quiet. Gods above, Willow hated the quiet, if only because it left her alone with her thoughts. She'd been asked, begged really, by Naruto to wait outside under heavy guard. Indeed, she was surrounded by a phalanx of clones while he dealt with whatever assaulted the manor. Blast it! She was useless like this. All her new powers aside, she was exhausted. If she'd gone in with him as she was now, she would have been and the world erupted. Without neither word nor warning, a towering pillar of crimson light burst out of the Schnee Manor. Willow flung up an arm against it, blazing eyes squinting up as the blinding swell of light kept going, slammed through the shields to pierce the very clouds themselves. Limned in red light, she gazed up at it with awe. The sky itself shimmered scarlet for a moment, and then, with an audible whoosh, it rushed back from whence it came. What was that? Naruto limped out, covered in blood, none of it his own. Nicholas leaned against his shoulder, looking positively haggard. But for her, for his daughter, he smiled. Hello, dear. You look lovely tonight. Willow sniffled softly. You dolts. 0.0. Her eyes were burning. Naruto wasn't sure what to make of that. He wasn't entirely certain he liked it either, if only because she looked fit to fall over at a moment's notice. He didn't much care about her new eyes, only that she was safe. He'd wrapped her leg for good measure, but it seemed she'd already healed. Strange. She shouldn't be able to heal that quickly. Did it truly matter if she'd gained a new power in the process, so long as she lived? No, none of it mattered. They would limp their way back to the others, the frozen Hazel in tow, and be done with this god's-awful night. Don't blame you. Kurama interjected with a jaw-popping yawn. At least we're rid of Marcus. Serves him right for trying to eat me. Do you think he escaped? We didn't find a body. Brat, I don't think there's a body left to find. Perhaps it was cruel to simply rip Marcus apart like that, to break him down at the molecular level and deny him any chance of return. Maybe it was, but he had to be sure. The man was too dangerous to be left alive. He needed to be dealt with personally, just as he needed to see his death. And he had. Marcus Black had blown apart, torn asunder from the eldritch energies he'd tried to absorb. It was his own fault, really. One does not simply try to absorb a Jinchuriki. You're staring. Willow's voice plucked him from his thoughts. Naruto blinked, drawn back to reality by her words. I guess I am. Is it these? She touched a hand to her, shimmering her eyes. I'm sorry, I can't control them. Something in the way she said those words worried him. He reached out and clasped her hand in his. She startled a little but didn't pull away. Actually, I think it suits you. He flashed her what he hoped was a disarming grin. You've got the whole suffer me now look going for you. Pretty badass, I think. Willow snorted. How unladylike of her. He loved it. Such a dolt. Maybe, he chortled, but you seem to think I'm your dolt. Hunger burned in her eyes. You certainly are. There! Willow barely had a chance to brace herself before a crimson blur slammed into her chest. Naruto jolted to his feet. Blue eyes flashed, thinking it was an attack. It wasn't. He plonked back down when he realized Willow wasn't in any real danger. Quite the contrary. Well, at least they didn't need to move now. Nicholas clapped him on the back. Imagine his surprise when Cinder and the rest, they came to them. I'm sorry. Their daughter bawled into Willow's skirts, tucking her little head against her mother's stomach. I didn't mean to distract you back there. I'm sorry. Before his very eyes, his partner slouched a little. Her gaze softened. It's all right, dear. She reached down with trembling arms and pulled the frightened girl into a warm embrace. There. Or... Naruto propped himself up with his false arm just in time to see Sienna. Well, he saw Raven first. She was carrying the poor girl, but it was difficult to miss her. She was awake and angry now, wild and struggling in her minder's grasp. It only intensified when she saw him sitting on the manor steps. Golden eyes lit up like fireworks. You're alive! Was that her concern? Huh! He thumbed his bloody nose. You know something like this wouldn't kill me. Of course not. Raven clicked her tongue, smiling only a little. You're just too damn stubborn. Naruto winked. I'll take that as a compliment, crazy bird. Raven rolled her eyes and set Sienna down. The faunus didn't budge. Such a stubborn little thing. She'd never be honest with herself. Naruto raised his arms. Hug? Her reaction startled him. Rather than retreat, she slammed into his chest and knocked him back a pace. Naruto sighed and pulled her close, hiding her face from view. Sienna didn't cry. No, certainly not. She was a big girl. If anyone said so, they were just imagining it. And if anyone heard her hiccup a little, or whimper, then surely they were hearing things. Yes, that was it. Good girl. Willow looked up at last, only to find everyone staring at her. Your eyes, oh dear. I am sorry. Ozpin leaned against his cane, looking older than ever before. This was not a fate I would wish upon you, Miss Schnee. In that moment, he looked positively haggard. It would appear you've been chosen. Taeyang swore. Summer looked away. Oz. Wait, Crow balked. So she's a maiden now? Raven inhaled sharply. Damn it, she's leaped past me again. Fate? What fate? And what the hell was a maiden? Still holding Sienna close, Naruto forced himself to sit up. What are you talking about? The headmaster seemed to sag beneath their glares. I suppose an explanation is due later. Willow flung up a hand to forestall a long-winded story. I'm entirely too sober for this, and it is late. We're tired. She jerked a thumb over her shoulder to the frozen statue that was Hazel Reynard. Our girls are tired. We're tired. Take our prisoner and be rid of him. We'll talk about this come morning. Naruto grinned despite himself. Tomorrow sounds good. I think we've all earned a bit of rest after tonight. Ozpin blinked. Surely you jest. This matter is of the utmost importance and we cannot delay, Summer bridled. Ozpin, please. Now's really not the time. We can do this later, right? Agreed. Nicholas gripped his shoulder. Let them have their moment, old friend. His grip tightened there. Just a little. After all, they've earned it. 0.0. They'd been drinking. Why were they drinking again? Were they celebrating something? Naruto couldn't even begin remember. He only knew that Willow had dragged him to her room, that she was currently sat in his lap, and he was very comfortable. Part of him vaguely recalled sending Cinder and Sienna to bed, but little more. The manor had suffered some damage on the lower levels, but the main wing was thankfully intact, and, other words, big words that he couldn't think of right now. He'd drunk too much, but after a night like tonight, maybe a little liquid courage was needed. He laid his head back, reveling in the pleasant buzz that filled his ears. This feels pretty nice. She laid one ear against his chest. It certainly does. Willow didn't do subtle. Perhaps she had once. Before all this. Perhaps she simply wasn't in the mood. Naruto didn't much blame her. She wanted a pleasant memory, something to drown out the hell she'd experienced. Jacques had tried to rape her very mind. No matter how much you trained your body or even your spirit, that was still vulnerable. That was bound to mess you up inside. Time would tell if that madman left any lasting scars on her psyche. Damn Jacques. Just thinking of him wrapped his thoughts into an angry knot. He'd kill him himself if he wasn't already dead. And he was dead. He would have sensed him otherwise. No man could survive those injuries. His face burned off, body skewered and flattened by rock and steel alike. To say nothing of the storm she'd unleashed on the ashes. Aura couldn't protect you against all that. Not for long. He was dead. Had to be. And if by some miracle he wasn't, well, something ugly shifted in his chest. He'd kill him again, as many times as it took. Together. Naruto blinked, drawn from his reverie by Willow's words. Come again? From now on, whatever happens, whoever stands in our way, her hands cupped his whiskered cheeks gently. Whatever we face it together now, all right? A pleading note entered her voice. Never forsake me, and I will never forsake you. Was she still on about that? No way was he leaving now. Not a chance in hell. Nope. He laughed aloud. You're stuck with me now. She winced. Even if I lose my way? Yep. A soft sigh permeated the darkness of her chambers. You're turning into Summer, you bastard. He wrapped an arm around her waist. Pretty sure she still wants to bang my arm. Willow slapped it, then paused. Huh. It's warm. So it is. He flexed his fingers, considering the metal digits. Watts thinks he'll be able to make a more practical application of it, skin and all. She perked up a little at that. You'll be able to feel with it? Should be able to, he nodded. It'll be nice, I guess. Without word or warning, Willow sat up in his lap. Speaking of feeling, his sixth sense shrilled a warning, but he didn't dodge. Not this time. When she bent down, he remained perfectly still. Her lips touched his, mouth moulding against him marvelously. But only for a moment. With a quick twist of his hips, he whirled and pinned her to the bed. She made a noise of contentment as he lowered himself to her and reciprocated her affections. I want you. The words tumbled out of her in a rush and she bulled on before something could hold her back. I'm tired of dancing around this, of the interruptions, of everything. We're so busy trying to solve everyone's problems. Let's just live. She pushed against him again and laid her hands upon his chest. I want you tonight. Be with me. Naruto stiffened. It was the first time someone had asked something like this of him in, well, forever. Even with his mind addled by drink as it was, he was sure he'd never be propositioned like this. They were the both of them tired and dirty, exhausted from the trials they'd suffered. Each had shed blood tonight, yet it was only here now that they felt truly alive. Ironic, really. Willow kissed him again then. It made a world of a difference. No one to interrupt them, no anxiety to hold them back, no explosions, no villains, no nothing. Only passion. Her teeth nipped at his lower lip, drawing blood, and he returned the favor in kind, ruthlessly plundering her mouth with his tongue. She gave a little cry at that, and his blood boiled anew. It took a physical act of will to let her. She crashed back to the bed and sprawled out beneath him, long hair a white halo about her head, chest heaving with every breath. Her blouse had come undone, revealing a tantalizing expanse of skin. He bent to kiss it, eliciting another whine from hers. Not there, she gasped. Up here. Kiss me. Sure, but what is stopping you? Her eyes blazed with fire. Then her lips were warm on his, burning with desire. He'd not expected that. If their brief kiss before had set a spark, then this was a raging flame. Her arms looped around his neck as his hands settled round her waist for better purchase. Firm fingers got a hold of her rear and pulled her close. She didn't care for his clothes, nor he hers. What could not be removed was simply rippled away by strong hands and glyphs alike. Fine garments were shredded apart without a care in the world, leaving only scraps behind. Willow ran a hand down her flank and met him halfway. His fingers hooked in the waistline of the underwear and tugged them off. She did the same unto his trousers and settled herself against him. A gasp pierced the air, followed by a string of rather questionable syllables. The sudden cursing fit startled Naruto, and she realized what she'd said a moment later. Snur! Naruto wasn't sure who startled laughing, only that one of them did. She doubled against him, bare breasts smashing against his chest. He scarcely noticed. It felt freeing to just laugh like this, as if the last of their chains had well and truly been stripped away. There could be no other words for it. Here at last, they were finally free. When he looked up, Willow's eyes were blazing again. My apologies, she sighed, wiping a mirthful tear from her eye. I lost control of myself for a moment there, huh? A delighted laugh leaped from her lips as he pinned her down again. One leg curled around his waist, pulling him close. They wrestled a moment more before she got the better of him and wound up atop, straddling him yet again. She gasped but a little and pushed closer, planting herself in his lap. His hands settled against her lips, causing her to hum anew. Then she began to move. No, that's fine. He couldn't help but smile a little as they fell into a rhythmic movement. I kinda like this side of you. You should be honest more often. Then I will. She rolled her hips against him, creating a fresh spark of desire. Never leave me, my love. Her voice peaked with fervor. I love you. I cherish you. Stay with me. Forever. Well, that's a little corny. Oh, wow, she could really move those hips. But I'm definitely not going anywhere. Willow laughed at that, and it was the purest sound in the world. You'd best not, Naruto, or I'll be incredibly cross with you. Together they fell into the throes of passion. And there was only sweet bliss. Chapter 15, Time Waits for No Man. It marches ever onward, without fail. Of course, the same can be said of humanity itself. Tilda Future is now, sowing the seeds, setting the stage, focus. Willow closed her eyes against the morning sunlight and inhaled slowly, filling her lungs with life-giving air. Deep breaths, slow breaths, the better to steady her hammering heartbeat and marshal her flagging energy. One by one, all earthly distractions bled away. She ceased to hear the children playing in the garden, no longer feel the warm sunshine on her back through her tunic, nor smelled the faint scent of the coming snowfall. The sweat on her brow ceased to be an irritant, as the last of her worries dissipated altogether. And so she began to recite her mantra. Peace is a lie. She'd believe otherwise once. Until that night. Peace was all well and good in theory, but too much of it made you weak. Weakness made you vulnerable. When you were vulnerable, you suffered. She'd learned that lesson well when she'd been abducted by Jacques nearly. She would not be weak. No, never again. She'd not fall for the lie of peace. There is only passion. In the end, that was what life was all about. Your passions defined you, just as she was defined by hers. She knew what she wanted, and so she would take it. She knew the might of the Winter Maiden longed for release, that it wanted to be used, unleashed against her foes. It burned in her veins like dry ice, hot yet cold all at once, a rising tide that was hers to control, channel and direct at her will. This power did not respond to logic or reason, or even the very laws of the world. This was a power that responded to emotion, and nothing else. Through passion, one gains strength. Naruto had once described chakra as something similar, a vast internal source of such strength, a veritable wellspring waited to be tapped. But his power was different. Though it had a will of its own, it was calm. Hers was wild, roaring with the power of countless lifetime, still untamed. A power that she must master if she was to survive, a force to be broken like a beast of burden and bend to her will. Through strength, power. Even now, nearly a year after inheriting Frey's blessing, Willow sometimes struggled with the concept of controlling her powers. How could she not, when the very elements themselves were hers to command? She had but to will it, and her power would burst forth. A wave of her hand could cool down hail. A mere thought might summon a blizzard. When she was truly angry, she could even conjure lightning. With time came understanding, if not quite mastery. She could summon it, direct it, but the finer points eluded her even after all this time. Through power, victory, there! She'd grasped it. A rush of cold wind swept in from the south to gather around form, sending the long white curtain of her hair swaying behind her back. Azure light swirled to life at her command, tugging her upward, holding her aloft. She raised both arms at her sides and felt her eyes begin to burn, trails of azure flame springing beneath closed lids. Only then did her senses truly expand. Only then did she truly leash her gift for the first time in a calm state. Only then did she see victory and grasp it with both hands. Through victory, her chains were broken. A peal of laughter escaped Willow, despite her best attempts to contain it. She glanced down at her hands, curling her fingers into fists. She felt like a goddess. Was this what Freya lived with? This was well worth being hunted for. She felt powerful, invincible, untouchable. And thus, she was free. What did it matter if others sought this power? They'd not have it. She'd sooner die than give it up. With this, she could stand by his side. Not just as a companion, but an equal. More than that! She could protect everything she held dear. In her eyes, it was well worth the danger this power posed. Ozpin had been dire in his warnings, but the promised danger had yet to materialize. Anyone who came for her and hers would regret the day they were born. Hey! Don't go laughing like a villain on me, a familiar voice drawled well below her. It's weird. Willow pivoted in the air, searching for her beloved, and found only empty air. She couldn't see him, of course. He was hiding from her, as she'd asked him to. What point was there in power if one could not test it? No, she most assuredly couldn't see him. And yet, her eyes drifted shut for a moment, followed by a faint smile. I sense you. Good. Naruto's voice laughed at her from where he'd hidden himself. That's the whole point of this training. His words came from everywhere, yet nowhere. Your reaction speed certainly improved, if nothing else. In her mind's eye, she saw his feet move, legs tensing for a single monumental spring. Are you ready? I'm not going to hold back much. Her smile became a girlish grin. Neither am I. More laughter. I like a challenge. There was a silence. Movement! Something shifted in her peripheral vision. Her eyes burst open as her sixth sense shrieked a warning. Willow whirled with a triumphant cry. Her right hand clenched into a claw, summoning a wall of ice between her and her foe. She heard a faint crunch as someone scaled it in a single bound. Her eyes betrayed her and snapped open. Golden light flashed through the air as someone soared past her. Warm lips brushed a startled Shnee's cheek, slowing her for all an instant. Then he was past with a merry cackle. Evading the thunderbolt, she called down in retaliation. A quick hop, skip, and a jump, and he was gone again, lost to sight once more. "Blast it!" she howled. "What did I tell you about stealing kisses?" Merry laughter swelled through the air. "To do it whenever I got the chance." "Yes, well..." A hint of colour flooded her cheeks. "I wasn't ready for that one." "You cheated!" "She tilde no tilde be tilde." Against her better judgment, Willow descended to the ground in search of her intended. No such luck. The Schnee Manor was massive on a good day, and the gardens themselves were more than large enough to hide in. Certainly for a shinobi. Ice-blue eyes narrowed upon the space she'd last seen him. Not a trace remained. Blast it. He'd always been good at hiding when he wanted to. Sometimes she wondered if it was possible to learn such a power, to simply erase her presence in the blink of an eye, to move undetected. Her stance shifted, ready for any trick, for him to erupt out of the ground, come running around a corner, or... She whirled as a shadow fell over her and summoned a frozen blade to her free hand. Naruto crashed into her like a falling star, driving a metal fist into her guard even as he brought his staff around with the other. Their weapons clashed, sparked, split apart, and struck again. They collided in a storm of blows, fire and ice alike. The earth shook and the sky boiled, grass burned, and fire roiled. Even then she knew he was holding back, if not for her sake, then his. Once upon a time, that might have galled her. Now, she grinned. "You'll have to do a little better than that, dear." Blue eyes blazed gold. "Fair enough." He slammed a punch at her face. One sable summarily swept it aside in a silver arc, trailing glimmers of ice as it went. He blocked, of course. She knew he would. Unfortunately, in doing so, he fell right into her trap. The moment her empowered blade made contact with his staff, frost burst across the bladed edge to coat his arm, entrapping both limb and weapon alike. She struck out again with her secondary weapon, forcing him to use his dominant hand to catch the blade. His sage-empowered limb didn't bleed even as sparks flew. Huh! A rare frown touched his face as he regarded his entrapped limb. "That's new." Her eyes flashed with renewed flame. "You haven't seen anything... yet." She flicked 2 fingers from Sable's hilt and rammed a gravity glyph into his face, forcibly ending their short-lived deadlock to cast him away like a flung stone. His back struck one of the stone walls and crashed through it at speed, leaving a decidedly Naruto-shaped impression behind. "Yes," a tiny voice inside her preened. That was the first time she'd gotten the drop on him in, well, forever. "Ha!" Her composure broke at last and she pumped a fist into the air. "First blood!" It wouldn't keep him down, of course. She'd surprised him. Nothing more. Sienna hooted from the sidelines. "Might want to look again." "Wait, what?" A flicker of motion was Willow's only warning as Naruto burst through the opening. Say what you would about Naruto's manners, but he always faced his problems head-on. She had all of an instant to react, no even less. It was enough. She discarded her frozen weapon and resorted to a different element entirely. When next Naruto closed with her, he was met with a course of lightning. Vicious violet light forked from her fingers to strike him head-on. He stumbled once and crashed to a knee. A startled hiss fled from his lips as just about every muscle in his body clamped down. Yes! Triumph burned through her. This was power! Unlimited power! She had him... Naruto raised his gaze and granted her a grim grin. My turn now. His clone vanished in a plume of smoke. Willow had all of an instant to frown. Bugger! He struck her from behind and swept her legs, sending her sprawling to the dirt. She rode the blow down and flung her hand out at him again, prepared to make him pay, and failed. A sudden dizzy spell hit her before she could follow through, and it was her turn to bend the knee. The lightning guttered out as her concentration slipped, her power slipping through her fingers even as she reached for it. No, not now. Not this again. She knew the reason for her sudden weakness, galling though it was. Even then, she didn't give up. If she was to lose this spar, she'd go down fighting. She parried furiously and kicked out at him, buying herself time to lurch to her feet. She struggled upright and felt a knife touch her throat. You should have stayed airborne. Warm air brushed her ear. What did I tell you about giving up the high ground? Her smile broadened. I didn't, you silly man. Naruto frowned and risked a glance down, only to find now a hardened dagger of ice pressing against a particularly vulnerable part of his anatomy. He looked back to her, golden eyes slowly shimmering back into blue. A stalemate. Were this a real fight, they would have grievously wounded one another. Could Naruto survive a wound like that? Willow didn't want to find out. Eventually, a slow smile spread across her partner's whiskered visage. The knife vanished up his sleeve, though he didn't release her. Clever girl. Her own dagger dissolved into harmless morning dew. What can I say? She looked up at him through half-lidded eyes and ground her rear against him. I learned from the best. It was a thing of beauty to watch his face darkened with a flush. You're absolutely insatiable. His arm settled on her waist and she leaned into him. Would you have me any other way? Suppose not. They stood like that for a long moment, simply basking in one another's company. Willow leaned further back, pressing her head against his chest, not yet trusting herself to speak. She wanted to. More than anything, she did. She'd been silent long enough. Now seemed as good a time as any to tell him. Did she dare? Fear stilled her tongue. No, this wasn't the way. He'd figured it out himself if she kept silent for much longer. Best to clear the air now, while she could. If she could. She bowed her head a little, then raised it again. Something wonderful has happened. Once spoken, the words couldn't be taken back. Well, you see. Naruto blinked. See what? Never once looking away, she took his hands in hers, guided them to her stomach, counted to 3 for good measure. His body stiffened against hers, and she swore she saw the moment he realized. His eyes flicked to her stomach, back to her stomach yet again. Naruto's jaw clicked open. Oh, wait, are you actually? She dared a tiny nod. Just this morning. He looked away, numb. Wow, that's wonderful. Quick as a flash, he had her by the waist, ready to swing her around. He thought at the last second. I don't even have the words. This is... Mom? They jerked apart as Cinder wandered over. While she did, Willow stole a glance at her worried ward. She really was growing into a beautiful young woman. They'd be beating her suitors back with a stick at this rate. Well, she'd be doing the beating. Naruto would probably terrify them. No one was good enough for his little girl. Well, he was right about that. And where were you hiding, little one? Wasn't hiding. Cinder flushed a bit and scuffed the ground with a heel. I was training. Her brow furrowed. I had the dream again. That dream? Naruto tilted his head, regarding her intently. The one of about the hill of glass and swords? Yes. I can't understand it. She stomped a foot. I want to be strong, but it makes no sense. You can't just be strong. With great power comes great responsibility. Willow's hand touched Cinder's back. Do you understand? I believe so. Her air made a face. We, she amended just at their dry look, have strength, so we mustn't use it frivolously. Right? Naruto quirked a brow. That's a new word. It is, Cinder preened. I've been reading. I have to be well read if I aim to run this company someday, let alone the F-melee. Certainly. Willow winced a little and dove right in. Speaking of which, do you feel about a sibling? Are you pregnant? I am. An ominous pause followed those words. Willow regarded Cinder with quiet concern. Once upon a time, a more uncertain Cinder might have panicked and lashed out blindly. Now, she took time to think. Willow tried not to worry about that. A cautious Cinder was a clever Cinder. It was too much to hope that she wouldn't plot something. Whether said scheming would be benign or not was anyone's guess. I think I'd like that. When the girl finally smiled, it was a small, fragile thing, indeed. I was first, after all. There was the unspoken question, the quiet fear she couldn't quite banish. She didn't want to be forgotten. She feared being replaced. Even after all this time, some fears couldn't be so easily eradicated. Yup, Tilda! Naruto pulled her close, banishing such anxiety. Nothing will change that. You'll make a great sister. Oi! Sienna bulled into his side. What am I? Chopped liver? What's this about a kid? Willow leaned back with a sigh, trying her darndest not to smile. This was her life. She would fight to keep it. And then her blasted scroll rang. Now what? 0.0. All right, Arthur. We're here. What's the big emergency? As ever, the man's lab was in utter disarray, so much so that Naruto couldn't help but pity him. Papers scattered to and fro as the man zipped about his workplace, making some final preparations for something he didn't understand. The smell didn't much help. He sniffed once and cringed, wincing at the faint odor of burnt ozone mingling with... What is that? Rotten eggs? Antiseptic? He didn't know and he didn't want to know. Ignorance was bliss, as they say. Yeesh, and I thought I was a slob. Sienna whimpered and pinched her nose. Smells bad. Naruto patted her head. I apologize for the somewhat hasty nature of my message. The scientist in question paused to bow before them, low and deep at the waist. Rest assured, I am ever your loyal ally. Credit where it was due, the man could brown nose with the best of them when he wanted to. As to the why, I simply wanted you to see this before the rest of the world. His gaze moved to a cynical Cinder and an amused Willow. See what now? This, came the cackle. My magnum opus, all thanks to you. As they looked on, the mad scientist all but marched to a bulky contraption of some sort. Whatever it was carefully concealed by a heavy white sheet. In a single fluid movement, he ripped the bulky cloth away to reveal a lever. He gave it a firm yank and the floor split only a few paces before him, exposing a yawning pit. Something rose from within. No doubt the masterpiece he was prattling on about. Watts had ever been an eccentric sort, but the last 2 years had left him a little off. Still, he was undoubtedly an ally to the Schnee family, and by definition, him. Who needed normality anyway? Sanity was boring. They were all mad here. Behold, at first Naruto couldn't comprehend what he was looking at. Whatever it was metal, all red and gold, vaguely humanoid in nature. It stared lifelessly back at them, cold and lifeless. That's it, he blinked. What's that supposed to be? Armor. Eh? Watts saw what he was looking at and straightened with a sputter. Blast it all. Wrong lever. Don't mind that. He reached past and fiddled with the contraption in question. It's a pet project of mine. Nothing to see here. He gave the device another crank and said suit slammed back into the darkness. Now let's try this again. A towering, transparent cylinder rose from the depths with a whir of hydraulics. There was someone sleeping inside, cocooned in warm blankets. A girl. Resting within that comfortable pod, she looked every bit at her ease. If one were to ignore the wires jutting from her back, funneling further into the container, a shiver stole over him at the sight. Whatever she wasn't human. Was she? I can sense her. Kurama banished his concerns. She's no machine. What was she then? Alma dear? Arthur rapped his knuckles against the glass once, producing a faint chime. Time to wake up. We have guests. Golden eyes fluttered open. With neither word nor warning, the pod creaked open, releasing its occupant. She stepped out daintily, like some little princess waking up from a nap. Those strange wires receded back into the pod, leaving her clutching a worn teddy bear to hear chest. Such a tiny thing. Cinder recoiled. She looks like me. Not quite. Her skin was more pallid, almost grey, and she was undoubtedly younger, but there could be no denying the resemblance there in the face, or the simple red dress she wore. Perhaps a bit leaner and more full of face with longer hair, nearly trailing down to the floor itself. Yet even a child could make the comparison between them. The girl looked left. The girl looked right. The girl frowned. Who is this, father? Her voice was the sweetest music entirely her own. This is the man responsible for your creation, Alma. Watts placed one hand upon her back and guided her forward, much to Naruto's chagrin. Without the chakra he provided, you wouldn't exist. You can finally meet him now. He is? Alma considered him with grave golden eyes that seemed to glow. Is he my uncle, then? Arthur's moustache twitched in mild amusement. Why, yes. I suppose you can call him that. Naruto's jaw clicked open. With a monumental effort, he snapped it shut. Well, hot damn. He whistled. Here, I thought I'd seen everything. Then Alma's gaze found Willow and Cinder, Sienna too. She offered each a beatific smile. Pleased to meet you, Tilda.